Chapter 16-19. Inside White Bone City. Opportunity, a great opportunity, a heaven-defying opportunity. After swallowing the 2 soul fires, the empty spirit mouse suddenly opened its small eyes and shouted excitedly at Yuhauran. "Little spirit, don't keep me in suspense, explain the situation in detail." Yuhauran stretched out his hand and flicked its little head, reminding it with a smile. "Yuhauran, the 2 soul fires that I just absorbed contained extremely pure soul force that can significantly enhance the grade of one's spirit soul," the void spirit mouse replied in an excited manner, no longer keeping Yuhauran in suspense. Yuhauran was not surprised by the void spirit mouse's reply. He raised his head and looked at the commotion caused by him killing the white skeleton, which attracted the attention of a dozen other ghastly white skeletons. He retreated to the city gate while questioning the void spirit mouse. "Little spirit, through the spirituality of these skeletons, I believe that the 2 soul fires must contain the consciousness of the skeletons themselves. Won't that consciousness affect your soul? As long as a living being's cultivation reached the martial ancestor realm, they would be able to condense their own soul. In the soul condensed by a living being, there was a unique consciousness and memory that belonged to the living being. These consciousness and memory were closely related to the soul power, and were a whole that was difficult to separate. If you wanted to increase your cultivation by devouring the soul of a living being, then you would have to bear the consequences of the consciousness and memory impact of the other party's soul power. And there were generally 2 outcomes for this consequence. In the best case, you would lose your mind and become a demon that was not controlled by your own consciousness. In the worst case, you would directly go mad, and your soul would be destroyed. Even the complete version of the great devouring technique taught by Thaling could not completely remove the residual consciousness and memory in the soul power. It required a very special array to barely remove the influence of consciousness and memory. Therefore, even the crazy demonic cultivators rarely used the method of devouring the soul power of living beings to increase their cultivation. Yuhauran, the soul fires condensed in the eyes of the skeletons are completely different from the soul condensed by living beings. Faced with Yuhauran's questioning, the empty spirit mouse still explained excitedly. Because the consciousness and soul power in the soul fires condensed in the eyes of the skeletons are not a whole, it can easily remove the influence of consciousness on soul power. Seeing that Yuhauran's eyes were still full of doubts, the empty spirit mouse thought for a while, and then explained further with examples. Yuhauran, the soul fires in the eyes of the skeletons are equivalent to the yunxiang orange you have eaten before. The consciousness of the skeletons is the skin of the orange yun orange, and soul power is yun orange fruit flesh. As long as you peel the fruit, you can enjoy the fruit of yunxiang fruit. Hearing the empty spirit mouse describe the structure of the soul fires in the eyes of the skeletons through the spiritual fruit of the yunxiang orange, although Yuhauran already understood it very well, there was still a trace of doubt in his heart, so he wanted to test it himself. Seeing the 13 gloomy skeletons retreating to the city gate with him, Yuhauran did not hesitate at all. The power of the law of speed combined with the basic fist technique, and in 1/10 of a second, he easily killed the 13 gloomy skeletons. Only the 2 soul fires in the eyes of one of the skeletons were left, and the remaining 24 soul fires were devoured and refined by the empty spirit mouse. Mobilizing the divine thought of the peak of the 10th grade martial venerable realm, he approached the soul fires little by little, and then through the method of peeling silk, he checked little by little whether the soul fires were as the empty spirit mouse said. After careful inspection, Yuhauran found that the facts were as the empty spirit mouse said. The 2 soul fires condensed in the eyes of the skeletons were indeed like the spiritual fruit yunxiang orange, and their consciousness and soul power were not completely integrated. Looking up at the countless gloomy skeletons that did not find anything unusual behind him, Yuhauran, after a short consideration, finally decided to use the complete version of the great devouring technique to try to devour the 2 soul fires in front of him. The 13 skeletons he killed just now, like the skeletons he killed at the beginning, were all at the first-grade martial grandmaster realm, and the soul fires of these skeletons contained very little soul power. Therefore, after quickly devouring and refining the pure soul power contained in the 2 soul fires, although it did not increase his own soul power, it confirmed the empty spirit mouse said that it was a heaven-defying opportunity. Turning his head to look at the empty spirit mouse on his shoulder, Yuhauran suggested with an excited look in his eyes, "Little spirit, according to the division of labor in our previous life, you will be responsible for luring those skeletons out of the ancient city, and I will be responsible for killing those skeletons outside the city gate. The soul power obtained will be divided between you and me 30-70. Yuhauran, now that I am at the peak of the 9th grade martial emperor realm, I urgently need a large amount of pure soul power to break through to the saint realm, so the soul power obtained will be divided equally between you and me." Faced with Yuhauran's proposal, the empty spirit mouse immediately shook its head to refuse, and proposed a new distribution ratio. "No problem. According to the size of the ancient city, and the number of skeletons gathered in the city, even 50% of the pure soul power contained in the soul fires would be enough for him and the empty spirit mouse to break through to the next realm." Therefore, faced with the new distribution ratio proposed by the empty spirit mouse, Yuhauran nodded his head without any objection. Afterward, the empty spirit mouse directly jumped off his shoulder, and then went to provoke those gloomy skeletons. Yuhauran took advantage of the situation to withdraw from the city gate, intending to complete the accumulation of his soul power outside the city. The waiting time was not very long. Accompanied by the creaking sound of bones grinding, a total of 70 gloomy skeletons left the ancient city under the provocation and guidance of the empty spirit mouse. With the law of speed combined with the basic fist technique, Yuhauran easily killed 70 skeletons with the cultivation of the first-grade martial ancestor realm in 2 seconds. According to the 50-50 ratio of the 140 soul fires, Yuhauran and the empty spirit mouse each obtained 70 soul fires. With his powerful cultivation combined with the great devouring technique, it took him less than 10 seconds to successfully devour and refine the soul power contained in the 70 soul fires. The pure soul power contained in the 71st-grade martial ancestor soul fires finally made him vaguely feel that his soul power realm had faintly increased. After waiting for about 2 minutes, the empty spirit mouse finally succeeded in absorbing and refining the pure soul power in the 70 soul fires, and then continued to provoke those gloomy skeletons in the city. Considering that Yuhauran was not only very strong, but also very fast in his attack speed, the empty spirit mouse went to provoke the skeletons for the second time, leading a total of 210 gloomy skeletons to leave the ancient city. With the law of speed and the law of flash combined with the basic fist technique, in less than 5 seconds, the 210 gloomy skeletons were completely turned into a pile of white powder. Chapter 1620. Outside White Bone City. After devouring and refining the 210 soul fires that contained pure soul power, Yuhauran turned his head and looked at the void spirit mouse that was crawling on the ground, trying its best to attract and refine the soul fires. When he saw that there were still 80 soul fires floating in front of it, he knew that it would need another 3 to 5 minutes to completely refine the rest of the soul fires. Yuhauran, who had already found the pleasure of increasing his soul power realm from the pure soul power contained in the soul fires, didn't want to waste any more time waiting. Therefore, he didn't disturb the void spirit mouse that was absorbing and refining the soul fires, and rushed into the ancient city alone. Then he would provoke the skeletons that still wanted to get close to the center of the ancient city. Whether it was cultivation, strength, aura, or blood, Yuhauran was more attractive to the skeletons in the ancient city than the void spirit mouse. More than 1,300 eerie skeletons appeared at the city gate with bony legs without a trace of flesh. Still using the law of speed and the law of flash in combination with the basic fist technique, Howren spent less than 30 seconds to easily kill more than 1,300 eerie skeletons. He separated 200 soul fires from the nearly 2,700 and sent them to the void spirit mouse with his divine thought. Then he began to use the great devouring technique to devour and refine more than 2,500 soul fires. The pure soul power contained in more than 2,500 soul fires made Howren clearly feel that the effect of his soul power realm was very significant. Therefore, in the next hour, he didn't need the cooperation of the void spirit mouse at all, and he lured nearly 30,000 eerie skeletons one after another, and used the combination of the law of speed and the basic fist technique to easily kill them. Excluding the 1,000 soul fires given to the void spirit mouse, the pure soul power contained in the remaining 30,000 soul fires finally made him feel the bottleneck of his soul power realm. Standing at the city gate, looking at the obviously empty ancient city in front of him, Howren's eyes flashed with a hint of hesitation. As his soul power had reached a bottleneck, the white-boned soulfire of the martial ancestor and martial king realms could no longer satisfy his soul power. If he wanted to continue using the pure soul power contained in the soulfire to break through to Emperor Wu's realm, he would have to devour and refine at least several 100,000 white-boned soulfires of the martial ancestor and martial king level, or use white-boned soulfires of a higher cultivation level. After luring and killing nearly 30,000 skeletons, Howren had discovered a pattern. The higher the cultivation of the skeletons, the closer they were to the center of the ancient city. At the same time, according to the map of the ancient city obtained by the Donfang clan, Bai Gu, who was gathered at the core of the ancient city, was most likely a peak rank 9 martial honorable or a rank 1 to rank 3 martial artist like Emperor Wu. Although his current cultivation was only at the complete grade 10 martial venerable realm, his physical body grade and Yuanli had successfully advanced to the peak of Emperor Wu's grade 1 martial venerable realm. Coupled with the fist technique that he had inherited from the witch ancestor, he already had the strength to defeat an early grade 1 Emperor Wu. As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. If he wanted his soul power to break through to Emperor Wu's realm in a short time, devouring and refining white-boned soulfires of a higher cultivation level was the best way. What's more, he had a teleportation talisman that could leave at any time. Even if he took a risk, he might not necessarily be in fatal danger. Therefore, after careful consideration, Howren finally decided to take the risk and enter the core of the ancient city. On the one hand, he hoped to obtain white-boned soulfires of a higher cultivation level. On the other hand, he also wanted to see what kind of earth-shattering secret was hidden in the core of the ancient city. After making a decision in his heart, Howren left the ancient city and came to the front of the empty spirit mouse, silently waiting for it to refine the last 100 or so soulfires. 10 minutes later, as the last white-boned soul fire was attracted and refined, the empty spirit mouse suddenly opened its small eyes, which were flickering with excitement, and said with an excited expression, Howren, I can try to break through to the Saint Realm with at most 100 soul fires of the first-grade martial king realm. How sure are you that you can break through? And how long will it take to break through to the Saint Realm? The empty spirit mouse's opportunity to break through to the Saint Realm made Howren a little hesitant. However, he was unwilling to give up, so he couldn't help but ask. The pure soul power contained in the white-boned soulfire of the first-grade martial king realm is still a little scarce. At most, it can help increase the probability of breaking through by 60%. Combined with its own special constitution, the empty spirit mouse gave the probability and time of breaking through after careful calculation. As for the time it will take to break through to the Saint Realm, it may take 3 to 4 hours. Little spirit, I want to. Whether it was the 70% probability of breaking through or the 3 to 4 hours of breaking through, it was related to the absorption and refinement of the white-boned soulfire. At the same time, it didn't conflict with his next action. Therefore, Yuhauran told the empty spirit mouse his idea and plan in detail, and asked if it agreed. After careful consideration, the empty spirit mouse, who had returned to Yuhauran's shoulder, nodded and agreed, "It's worth a try." After getting the empty spirit mouse's agreement, Yuhauran directly took out 2 position transmission talismans and gave one of them to the empty spirit mouse. The reason for doing this was to prevent him from activating the position transmission talisman in time due to special circumstances, so that the empty spirit mouse could use the position transmission talisman to take him out of White Bone City. After everything was ready, Yuhauran took a deep breath, rose into the air, and rushed directly to the core of the ancient city. Sensing the invasion, tens of thousands of gloomy white bones of martial sages and above in the ancient city rushed into the sky, intending to intercept and kill the intruder who dared to break into the forbidden area. Overturning rivers and seas. He quickly took out the white stick of the superior grade Venerable Realm, and then used the stick martial skill inherited from the Monkey Emperor. Facing the tens of thousands of white bones of martial sages, Yuhauran took the initiative to meet them without fear. Boom! The physical body of the ancestor sorcerer, who was at the peak of the first-grade martial emperor realm, combined with the inherited staff technique performed by the top-grade Venerable Realm staff weapon, directly smashed and shattered the 37 skeletons of the martial saints who had rushed to the front. At the same time, his powerful divine thought immediately swept up the 74 soul fires floating in the air, and then put them into the elixir bottle that he had prepared in advance. He took the risk to rush into the core of the ancient city, not only to get higher-grade soul fires and find out the hidden secrets of White Bone City, but also to collect more soul fires of different grades, so that he could use them to improve the soul power of Qinling Fei, the Sword Without Trace, and Wu Jingjun. Overturning rivers and seas. The second move of the Monkey Emperor's inheritance, overturning rivers and seas, was a stick martial skill that was suitable for large-scale attacks. At the same time, the previous move of the stick martial skill could easily kill 37 white bones of martial sages, which gave him full confidence. Therefore, Yuhauran, who was full of confidence, did not change his attack method, and continued to use the same stick martial skill to kill the tens of thousands of white bones that surrounded him. Boom! Boom! Chapter 1621. In White Bone City. In just 5 minutes, Yuhauran performed the overturning rivers and seas 17 times in a row, killing 976 martial sage realm skeletons and harvesting nearly 2,000 high-quality soul fires. Even if he lost nearly 1,000 martial sage realm skeletons in a short time, the number of martial sage realm skeletons surrounding him did not decrease at all. Instead, their number increased. In this regard, Yuhauran, who quietly took an elixir to recover his primordial qi, was not afraid at all. He waved the supreme-grade Venerable Realm staff celestial weapon in his hand again. Boom! Boom! 10 minutes later, Yuhauran, who had performed the overturning seas and rivers staff technique 28 times in a row, had his originally excited expression gradually become serious. A trace of hesitation even appeared in his eyes. Moreover, he had already begun to consider whether or not he should use the positioning teleportation talisman in his hand. Because just now, he had performed the overturning rivers and seas 28 times, but only killed less than 300 gloomy skeletons and harvested less than 500 soul fires. The reason was that the martial Venerable Realm peerless powerhouses began to appear among the gloomy skeletons. The martial Venerable Realm skeletons were not only very powerful in attack, but also in defense. One move of the staff could only kill 2 or 3 martial Venerable Realm skeletons at most. At the same time, the number of gloomy skeletons surrounding him had reached a shocking number of more than 50,000. Yuhauran, in my previous life, you once said to me that it's stupid to do something when you know it's impossible. Looking at the tens of thousands of gloomy skeletons surrounding him and Yuhauran from all directions, the empty spirit mouse could not help but remind him when he realized that he could not break out of the encirclement with his own strength. Moreover, the high-quality soul fires harvested just now can not only satisfy my breakthrough to the martial sage realm, but also help your soul power to advance to the Emperor Wu realm. Now, we can use the teleportation talisman to leave. Using a portion of his yuan qi and soul power recovered from the elixir, he forcefully destroyed 3 martial venerable realm and 9 martial saint realm skeletons, and collected 24 high-quality soul fires. After that, Yu Haoran nodded in agreement to the empty spirit mouse's proposal. After that, he channeled a trace of elemental energy from his dantian into the teleportation talisman. Just as he was about to leave the space where he was trapped, the whistling sound from an hour ago rang out again. Accompanied by a roar that resounded through the clouds, all the martial venerable level peerless skeletons immediately broke free from the encirclement and headed straight for the center of the ancient city. Sensing the change in the core of the ancient city, Yu Haoran immediately retracted the yuan li that he had injected into the teleportation talisman. Furthermore, he swallowed 3 medicinal pills that were used to recover his yuan li and soul power. After that, he instantly became as lively as a dragon and a tiger as he continued to kill the martial saint realm white bones. Only 3 minutes later, another deafening howl came from the center of the ancient city. At the same time, a sharp sword qi that contained the might of the heavens rose from the center of the ancient city. Kacha, kacha! Just as the sharp sword qi that contained the might of the heavens rose, a very ear-piercing sound of bones rubbing against each other suddenly rang out. Hearing the ear-piercing sound of bones rubbing against each other, tens of thousands of martial saint realm white bones that were desperately trying to kill Yu Haoran turned around and rushed to the center of the ancient city. However, Yu Haoran did not immediately chase after them, because the sharp sword qi that erupted from the center of the ancient city just now vaguely gave him a very familiar feeling, as if he had come into contact with this kind of sharp sword qi before. However, that sharp sword qi had disappeared too quickly, so much so that he couldn't remember what it was. Yu Haoran, look! Just as Yu Haoran lowered his head and carefully recalled the origin of the sharp sword qi, the empty spirit mouse standing on his shoulder suddenly reminded him. This is... After hearing the empty spirit mouse's reminder, Yu Haoran immediately looked up, and then there was an extremely shocked expression in his eyes. Because at this moment, in the center of the ancient city, there rose a white bone tower that reached a height of 9,999 meters and was tightly bound by countless black iron chains. The martial venerable and martial saint skeletons that had escaped from the encirclement were all sitting cross-legged around the bone tower. 2 souls slowly floated out of their eye sockets and attached themselves to the black iron chains that wrapped around the bone tower. As more and more martial saint and martial venerable soul flames attached themselves to the black iron chains, the bone tower that was 9,999 meters tall was forcibly pulled down 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters by the black iron chains. The bone tower that was originally 9,999 meters tall was forcibly pulled down 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters by the black iron chains. When the 9,999 meters tall white bone tower was forcibly pulled down more than 3,000 meters into the ground, the white bone tower shot out a sharp sword qi that was powerful enough to split the heavens and earth. Ha ha! Accompanied by the sharp sword qi shooting out, arrogant laughter came from the bone tower along with the shooting of the sharp sword qi. After 2 years of dedicated cultivation, my sword skill of universal massacre has finally reached the greater completion stage. Now I, the Heaven Slayer Demon Venerable, will use this sword skill of universal massacre that has just reached the greater completion stage to break through this damned dragon bone tower. Then, I will directly break through to the almighty realm of Emperor Wu. 4 Guardian Emperors, your doomsday is here. Just as the expert in the bone tower said the sword skill of universal massacre, Yuhaoran had already recalled the source of the sharp sword chi that gave him a familiar feeling. That was the sword skill of universal massacre that he had accidentally obtained from the remnant soul of the Heaven Slayer demon venerable in the Four Symbols sect's treasury. However, the sword skill of universal massacre conflicted with the Great Mystery Heart Sutra that he had cultivated. Thus, he had never truly comprehended or cultivated it. The Heaven Slayer demon venerable's arrogant and domineering vow rang in his ears. Thinking back to when he had been forced to accept the Heaven Slayer demon venerable's remnant soul in the jade slip, a complicated look appeared in Yuhaoran's eyes. The sword roars through the 9 heavens, the soul returns to the earth, the Heaven Slayer demon venerable, break. Just as the arrogant laughter stopped, the Heaven Slayer demon venerable, who was trapped in the bone tower, immediately unleashed his self-created sword skill of universal massacre that had reached the greater completion stage. As the terrifying sword skill of universal massacre started to rise from the bottom of the bone tower, cracks started to appear on the white bone tower. Citizens of the White Bone City, contribute the soul fire that you have been protecting. Just as cracks started to appear on the white bone tower due to the terrifying sword chi of universal massacre, a bewildering voice sounded from the top of the bone tower. As the bewildering voice sounded, a 3-meter-tall skeleton with white soul fire in its eye sockets appeared at the top of the bone tower. After seeing the tall skeleton that appeared at the top of the bone tower, Yuhaoran's eyes were filled with shock. Not only was he shocked by the white soul fire in the skeleton's eye sockets, but he was even more shocked by the skeleton's crystal-clear skeleton. Chapter 1622. Inside Bone City. After killing tens of thousands of skeletons, Yuhaoran knew that the color of the skeleton's bones was related to their cultivation when they were alive. It also determined the strength they could wield after death. The skeletons were silver-colored. Their cultivation was between Martial Ancestor, Martial King, and Martial Emperor. The toughness and defense of the skeletons were comparable to top-grade Emperor artifact. The skeletons were milky white. Their cultivation was between Martial Saint, Martial Venerable, and Emperor Wu. The toughness and defense of the skeletons were comparable to high-grade Emperor artifact. The skeletons at the top of the bone tower were more than milky white. They were almost translucent. This meant that the skeletons were very likely to be at the peak of the 9th grade Emperor Wu, or a demigod false god. Even though losing his physical body and origin power would cause his cultivation and strength to drop by a lot, with the toughness of his bones, which were infinitely close to that of a divine artifact, he would still be able to display strength between rank 3 and rank 4 Martial Emperor. Therefore, when Yuhaoran saw the huge white bones floating at the top of the bone tower, he instinctively retreated a distance so that he could activate the teleportation talisman in his hand and leave the dangerous White Bone City in case something happened. 2 white soul flames floated in his empty eye socket. They glanced at the bone tower that Gu Mu was sitting cross-legged on. They found that more and more cracks had appeared on the bone tower under the attack of the dreadful sword chi. The width of the cracks was also increasing. It was on the verge of collapse. White soul fires not only meant that the skeletons had become more powerful, but also that they had regained their consciousness and matured. Therefore, when the skeletons saw the bone tower on the verge of collapse and thought of the terrifying cultivator who had been sealed for almost 10,000 years, the skeletons at the top of the bone tower immediately ordered the skeletons in the ancient city to contribute their soulfires. The skeleton's 10 slender bones quickly formed seals and merged the seals with the black chains. Then, the black iron lotus that had merged with the imprint formed a suction force that directly swallowed the soul fire that was attached to the iron lotus. Clap, clap, clap. As more and more soul fires were devoured by the black chains, the skeletons of the martial emperors and martial saints around the bone tower suddenly shattered. In a short span of 3 minutes, the bone tower was surrounded by countless broken bones, forming a bone wall. As more and more soul fires were devoured, the binding force of the black iron chains became stronger. Not only did the cracks on the bone tower gradually close together, but the bone tower was also pulled back into the ground. A final struggle. Sensing the changes in the bone pagoda and the black chains, Heaven Slayer Demon Venerable, who was trapped in the bone pagoda, did not panic at all. He sneered in disdain and shouted. Silver falls from the 9 heavens, destroying the heavens and earth, slaying the immortals to prove their Tao. My lord rises and falls. Following Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable's roar, an even more terrifying sword chi rose from the bone pagoda. At the same time, the powerful impact of the terrifying sword chi caused the bone tower, which had been barely mended with the help of the binding force, to crack open once again. Moreover, several dozen of the black chains that wrapped around the bone tower were also broken. Although a skeleton that had lost its flesh and blood could not have any expression, Yuhauran clearly sensed the change in the skeleton's expression when the black chains were broken. He raised his head and looked at the countless skeletons gathered in the ancient city. The white soulfire in his empty eye sockets suddenly jumped a few times. Then, it left his empty eye sockets and floated above the skull. Then, the floating white soulfire gradually formed a suction force, an extremely strong suction force. This strong suction force began to devour the soulfires in the eyes of the countless skeletons in the ancient city. The skeletons, which were silver-colored, did not resist or struggle in the face of the white soulfire's suction force. They were swallowed by the white soulfire and turned into piles of skeletons in the end. However, the milky white skeletons, especially the thousands of skeletons that were faintly transparent, immediately lifted their bony palms without a trace of flesh and blood, and tightly covered their eye sockets to prevent the soul fire from leaving their empty eye sockets. At the same time, they immediately rose to the sky, intending to temporarily escape from the center of the ancient city. Damn traitors! Faced with the thousands of high-level martial venerable skeletons who were fleeing, the giant skeleton sitting on the bone tower could not help but roar to the sky. However, the white soulfire that could control the skeletons was in the process of pulling and devouring. It could not stop or kill the high-level martial venerable skeletons. It could only watch them fly away from the bone tower. When Yuhauran saw the thousands of high-level martial venerable white bones trying to escape the bone tower, he covered his empty eye sockets with his bony hands to prevent the soul fire in his eye sockets from being forcefully extracted. A crazy idea suddenly appeared in his mind. He raised his head and looked at the giant skeleton sitting on the top of the bone tower and the white soulfire that was devouring and refining the countless soulfires above the skeleton's head. Indeed, when the white soulfire could not attack temporarily because it was pulling and devouring the countless soulfires, it immediately recovered its nearly 3,000 meters tall body of the ancestor sorcerer. Then, it waved its gigantic palms that covered the sky and attacked the high-level martial venerable skeletons as if it was swatting flies. Boom! Accompanied by the continuous roars like spring thunder, hundreds of high-level martial venerable skeletons were smashed and broken by the gigantic palms that covered the sky. Thousands of fist-sized soulfires fell to the ground. The empty spirit mouse, who had turned into a white light, used a special method to collect treasures to quickly collect the soulfires that fell to the ground. The gigantic skeleton sitting cross-legged at the top of the bone pagoda watched as Yuhauran madly slaughtered the high-level martial venerable skeletons. It did not threaten or stop him, nor did it arrange for more martial saints and low-level martial venerable skeletons to surround and kill him. It only raised its empty eye sockets and stared at Yuhauran as if it was imprinting his appearance and aura into its mind. Transforming into the nearly 3,000 meters tall body of the ancestor sorcerer, although it increased the range of its attack, it also limited the speed of its attack. Therefore, facing the extreme speed of the skeletons that were desperately escaping, Yuhauran desperately tried to kill them, but in the end, only less than 900 high-level martial venerable skeletons were left. Fortunately, The nearly 2,000 high-level martial venerable skeletons' soul fires contained pure soul power, which was more than enough for him and his close friends to increase their soul power. Therefore, facing the majority of high-level martial venerable skeletons that had escaped from the bone tower, Yuhauran was not too disappointed. Yuhauran quickly dispersed the ancestor sorcerer's body, and then transferred a trace of energy into the teleportation talisman. He was prepared to leave the White Bones City in advance. After all, killing the high-level martial venerable skeletons that had escaped from the bone tower was equivalent to provoking the Emperor Realm skeleton. When the Emperor Realm skeleton finished devouring the soul fires, it would immediately give him a thunderous blow. Chapter 1623. Inside White Bones City. White Bones City was huge. It was almost 5 times the size of Xianyang City. There were more than 10 million people living in Xianyang City. Therefore, there were more than 100 million white bones in White Bones City, which was 5 times the size of Xianyang City. Faced with such a huge number of white bones, it was difficult for Emperor Wu to devour and refine all the soul fires in a short period of time, even though he was a rank 4 true god. Therefore, after devouring and refining the soul fires of almost 1 million martial honorables, martial sages and martial emperors, the white soul fires that were as big as watermelons cut off the strong suction force. The high-level martial honorable white bones that were trying their best to escape from the bone pagoda stopped running. They floated in the air and waited for the next change in the battle. Merge! The martial emperor Baigu, who was sitting cross-legged at the top of the bone tower, lifted his crystal-clear bony finger and pointed it at the 2 white soul fires floating above his head. Along with the martial emperor's soft cry, the 2 white soul fires that were the size of watermelons gradually moved closer to each other. In the end, they merged into a pure white soul fire that was almost transparent and larger in size. Illusion! Emperor Wu's bony finger quickly formed a seal. As the seal merged with the white soul fire, Emperor Wu's bony finger shouted. Following Emperor Wu's command, the white soul fire twisted and turned into a huge white dragon that was more than 10,000 meters long. It was exuding a terrifying aura of soul power. Trap! The martial emperor Baigu quickly soared into the air. He extended his bony finger and pointed at the bone pagoda below. Along with martial emperor Baigu's roar, the white dragon charged towards the bone pagoda with a thunderous roar. Its long and slender body wrapped around the bone pagoda tightly, causing the bone pagoda that was on the verge of collapse to close up again. Moreover, it accelerated the speed of its descent. Gu Ling, you and I have known each other for almost 10,000 years. We have fought more than 100 times. You should know that the soul fire dragon is useless against me. The heaven-punishing demon Venerable did not panic when he saw the bone pagoda closing up and sinking rapidly. Instead, he spoke in a disdainful tone. In the face of Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable's disdainful reminder, or rather, provocation, the skeleton of Emperor Wu floating above the bone tower did not retort. It only raised its head and looked towards the northeast. The eye sockets that had lost the 2 white soul fires were like black holes, but Yu Haoran, who was well versed in Formula Dao, was able to see an unexpected scene from the black holes. 4 white-haired old men dressed in green, white, red, and yellow robes were speeding towards him from different directions. Judging from how the Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable used the Universal Massacre sword skill to attack the Bone Pagoda, and how Martial Emperor Baigu tried his best to strengthen the Bone Pagoda's defense, the Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable must have been forcefully suppressed in the Bone Pagoda by some terrifying force. Furthermore, Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable already had the ability to break free from the Bone Pagoda and break through to Emperor Wu's realm from the damage he had done to the Bone Pagoda. He thought back to how the remnant soul of the Heaven Slayer Demon Venerable had taken good care of him back in the Jade Slip, and how he had managed to create a Heaven's Mandate technique that was on par with the Great Mystery Heart Sutra. As Yu Haoran held the teleportation talisman in his hand tightly, he used his soul power to shout at the Bone Pagoda. Senior Heaven Punisher, hurry up and break through the suppression of the Bone Pagoda. Then, break through to Emperor Wu's realm as soon as possible, for Emperor Wu's realm experts are on their way here. After hearing Yu Haoran's shout, Emperor Wu's Bone Pagoda, who was looking towards the northeast, suddenly turned its head. Its empty eye sockets were filled with murderous intent. Kid, under the surveillance of the Heavenly Way, even martial honorables don't dare to leave their cultivation grounds. Emperor Wu's realm experts are on their way to White Bones City. Aren't they tired of living? Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable retorted in disbelief at Yu Haoran's reminder. Senior Heaven Punisher, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, has all returned to the profound sky continent. All living beings are gradually recovering. The Heavenly Way has already entered a deep slumber. Yu Haoran knew that Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable had been suppressed in the Bone Pagoda for almost 10,000 years. It was normal that he didn't know about the changes in the environment. Right now, even a third tribulation demigod can safely descend to the continent, let alone Emperor Wu's realm experts. How is this possible? After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable, who was used to being suppressed by the Heavenly Way, mumbled to himself in disbelief. The Universal Massacre Sword technique can destroy one's heart and soul, can destroy the heavens and the earth, can reach great success by killing oneself. Based on what he had seen from the martial emperor's empty eye sockets, Yu Haoran knew that the 4 white-haired martial emperors would soon arrive at White Bone City. Therefore, he had to make Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable accept reality as soon as possible. Then, he would use all his strength to break through the suppression of the Bone Pagoda. He would then immediately choose to break through to Emperor Wu's realm. This was the only way that Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable could use the Universal Massacre Sword technique, which surpassed the Heaven class, to fight against his opponents. Even if he couldn't defeat his opponents in the end, Emperor Wu's realm of cultivation and strength would allow Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable to leave White Bones City safely. You are the disciple that my remnant soul accepted as my legacy. After hearing Yu Haoran's introduction of the Universal Massacre Sword technique, Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable immediately knew who he was. Disciple Yu Haoran greets Master. Although he wanted to explain to Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable that he didn't agree to become his legacy disciple, he needed to spend some time to do so. Under such circumstances, Yu Haoran could only pretend to be Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable's disciple for the time being. He wanted to gain Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable's trust and make up his mind to break out of the Bone Pagoda as soon as possible. Since you are my legacy disciple, I will not lie to Master. I will break out of this damned cage now and break through to Emperor Wu's realm of cultivation. Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable was very pleased that Yu Haoran greeted him as his disciple. He chose to believe Yu Haoran's explanation of the situation in the Tianxian continent. He mustered all his strength and performed a sword technique that he had carefully prepared. Heaven Punisher, Emperor Wu's realm of cultivation, was at the pinnacle of cultivation. After hearing Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable's confidence in breaking through to Emperor Wu's realm of cultivation, Yu Haoran was pleasantly surprised. Emperor Wu's realm of cultivation was at the pinnacle of cultivation. Together with the Universal Massacre Sword technique that could increase one's strength tenfold, Heaven Punisher Demon Venerable might be able to defeat Emperor Wu's realm of cultivation, Bai Gu, and the 4 white-haired elders. Chapter 1624. Inside White Bones City. Soul, come. Sensing the sword technique that the Heaven Slayer Demon Venerable was using in the Bone Pagoda, it was powerful enough to break through the Bone Pagoda's defense and escape. In order to prevent the soul fire from being damaged when the bone pagoda's defense was breached, the Emperor Wu's bone pagoda immediately extended its bony finger and called out to the bone pagoda. Roar! The giant white dragon that was using all its strength to wrap around the bone pagoda immediately let go of the bone pagoda when it heard the call of the Emperor Wu's bone pagoda. Then, it roared and charged into the sky. When the giant white dragon was about 100 meters away from the Emperor Wu's bone pagoda, its entire body exploded. Then, it quickly condensed into 2 fist-sized soul fires and returned to the empty eye sockets of the Emperor Wu's bone pagoda. Boom! At this moment, the bone pagoda that had lost the giant white dragon's support immediately shattered into countless pieces under the powerful sword technique of the Heaven Slayer demon Venerable. Yuhaoran reached out and grabbed a piece of bone that was flying towards him. After scanning the bone with his divine thought, he was pleasantly surprised to find that the bone in his hand was the corpse of the Emperor Wu's peak 9th stage giant dragon. Moreover, there was still a small amount of energy left in the bone that could help Aotian break through to the honorable realm as soon as possible. Aotian immediately used his primordial energy to form a giant hand that could cover the sky. He quickly collected the scattered bone fragments and put them all into Aotian's pet space. Master, give me 3 days. I will definitely break through to the honorable realm. Yinglong, who had also sensed the powerful energy left in the bone fragments, immediately promised Yuhaoran excitedly. Aotian, after the trial in White Bone City, I will cultivate in the prince's mansion for a period of time. So, don't give yourself too much pressure. Just focus on your cultivation. After nodding and reminding Aotian, Yuhaoran quickly raised his head to look at the Heaven Slayer demon Venerable who had escaped from the Bone Pagoda's suppression. Regardless of appearance, body shape, clothes, or aura, the Heaven Slayer demon Venerable in front of him was exactly the same as the Heaven Slayer demon Venerable condensed by the remnant soul in the Jade Slip space. The only difference was that the Heavenly Slayer demon Venerable's aura was stronger and sharper. Looking at Heaven Punisher demon Venerable floating in the air with his natal sword in hand, Yuhaoran had a very realistic feeling. Although the Heavenly Punisher demon Venerable was only a peak rank 9 martial honorable, even Emperor Wu, who was a peak rank 1 almighty, might not be his match. Not bad. The Heaven Punisher demon Venerable, who was floating in the air, slowly opened his eyes when he sensed someone's gaze on him. He carefully sized up Yuhaoran and sighed with satisfaction. Looks like the remnant soul's luck is pretty good, to actually be able to find such an outstanding successor. Master, time is of the essence. No matter what doubts you have in your heart, it's better to wait until you've successfully broken through Emperor Wu's realm. The overly calm expression of Emperor Wu's skeleton made Yuhaoran immediately realize that either he had the means and trump card to suppress the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable, or the 4 white-haired elders of Emperor Wu's realm were about to arrive. Hence, he forcefully suppressed the urge to find out the relationship between them and quickly reminded the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable to break through his cultivation rank as soon as possible. I know. After escaping from the suppression of the Bone Pagoda, the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable immediately sensed the changes in the environment. Just as Yuhaoran had described, the rules of heaven had fallen into a deep slumber and the martial honorables and Emperor Wu's realm experts were no longer restricted. At the same time, the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable could vaguely sense danger approaching. Hence, the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable nodded his head solemnly when he heard Yuhaoran's reminder. He then performed a sword technique towards the north of the ancient city. After a sharp sword chi slashed through, more than 10,000 skeletons of martial honorables, martial sages and martial emperors were reduced to dust. Tens of thousands of floating soul fires were absorbed into his body by the suction force formed by his body. Emperor Wu's breakthrough required not only sufficient soul power, but also a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth. Fortunately, when he was facing the endless lightning tribulations in the hidden dragon fortress in the central region, he had transferred all the spiritual meridians stored in the victor into his storage ring in order to quickly recover his origin energy. Hence, when the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable urgently needed a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth in order to successfully break through to Emperor Wu's realm, Yuhaoran did not hesitate to take out all the spiritual meridians and high-grade spiritual stones and toss them all to the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable, who was breaking through to the next realm. Master, these spiritual stones and spiritual meridians will help you. The Heaven Punisher demon Venerable turned his head to look at the hundreds of thousands of 4th grade and 3rd grade spiritual stones and 22 7th grade and 6th grade spiritual meridians. His eyes flashed with joy. As he waved his hand to collect the spiritual stones and spiritual meridians, the gratification in his eyes became more intense. The white soul fires of Emperor Wu's skeleton, which had been quietly floating in the air, suddenly jumped a few times when it saw the spiritual stones and spiritual meridians tossed out by Yuhaoran. Then, it completely quieted down. With the help of the spiritual stones, spiritual meridians and soul fires containing pure soul power, the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable could directly break through to Emperor Wu's realm without any distractions. Hence, he did not need to pay too much attention to him. Hence, after reserving a part of his divine thought to guard against the skeleton of Emperor Wu, Yuhaoran turned his head and asked the empty spirit mouse on his shoulder, "Little spirit, will the breakthrough of the Saint Realm attract the arrival of the Heaven's will and the heavenly ways rules?" "No." The empty spirit mouse shook its head and turned to look at the south of the ancient city. There was a hint of worry in its eyes as it reminded Yi Shiwen. "But it will attract the attention of the Heaven's will. Then, when you break through to the Venerable Realm, the Heaven's will attack you." After hearing the empty spirit mouse's reminder, Yuhaoran suddenly thought of the white-haired old man in the scorching sun Taoist robe on the silver chessboard. His eyes were like the heavenly ways rules. The idea that had just emerged in his mind immediately hesitated. However, when the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable successfully broke through the bottleneck of the realm with the help of the spiritual meridians and soul fires, and forcibly broke through to the Emperor Wu's realm, his body emitted a terrifying aura that was enough to stir up the mysteries of heaven. Hence, his hesitation immediately became firm. "Little spirit, use these 3 soul fires of the Venerable Realm to break through to the Saint Realm at the fastest speed," Yuhaoran solemnly reminded the empty spirit mouse as he took out 3 soul fires of the Venerable Realm from the elixir bottle. "I got it!" When Yuhaoran raised his head and saw that the void within 1,000 miles of White Bone City was showing signs of collapsing when the Heavenly Punisher Devil Venerable broke through to the martial Emperor Realm, the empty spirit mouse immediately guessed Yuhaoran's intention and directly swallowed the 3 white bone soul fires of the martial Venerable Realm. Then, it directly left Yuhaoran's shoulder and landed on the open space swept out by the collapse of the bone tower. Chapter 1625. In White Bone City. Boom! In just 5 minutes, Heaven Slayer Demon Venerable, who had successfully broken through to Emperor Wu's realm, raised his cultivation to the peak of rank 1 Emperor Wu's realm. Break! Heaven Slayer Demon Venerable's powerful aura did not weaken at all. While maintaining his cultivation level, he unleashed another sharp sword chi to kill more than 50,000 skeletons. After that, Heaven Slayer Demon Venerable used more than 100,000 soul fires that contained pure soul power and 2 upper rank 6 spiritual veins to break through the bottleneck of Emperor Wu's realm early rank 2. Finally, he successfully advanced to rank 2 Emperor Wu's realm. Break! At the same time, Empty Spirit Mouse, who had used 3 soul fires to break through to the Sage realm, also successfully advanced to the Sage realm. Break! Yuhaoran immediately used Fushi's 8 trigrams to forcefully disperse the Empty Spirit Mouse's aura when it was breaking through to the Sage realm when it sensed a terrifying consciousness. The moment the empty spirit mouse's aura dissipated, the terrifying consciousness that was about to reach White Bone City suddenly stopped and slowly dissipated. Phew! Yuhauran heaved a sigh of relief when he sensed that the terrifying consciousness was gradually dispersing. He quickly took out a dozen elixirs to stabilize his cultivation level and threw them all to empty spirit mouse. Then, he immediately turned his head to the south of the ancient city. When he used the Fushi 8 trigrams art of innate divination to sense the terrifying consciousness, he accidentally sensed a powerful aura rapidly approaching the ancient city thousands of miles away from White Bone City. Screech! Just as Yuhauran turned his head, a high-pitched screech sounded. Along with the high-pitched screech, a 1,000-meter-long fire phoenix flapped its wings and rushed into the ancient city. Then, it circled above Emperor Wu's skeletons. Gu Ling, why didn't you stop Emperor Wu from breaking through to the next realm? The fire phoenix, which was hovering above Emperor Wu's skeleton, asked sternly. With my life spirit sealed, I can only unleash the power of a 9th-grade martial honorable. How can I stop the heaven-punishing demon Venerable from breaking through? Emperor Wu's white bones asked calmly as he slowly raised his skull. Gu Ling, the 4 great guardians have given you the responsibility of suppressing Heaven-Slayer demon Venerable and protecting the secret of White Bones City. Faced with Emperor Wu's rhetorical question, the fire phoenix immediately threatened unhappily. Now, not only did you not stop the Heavenly Slayer demon Venerable from breaking through, you even allowed him to enter the ancient city. Are you tired of living? Do you want your soul to be destroyed? Don't worry, Fire Spirit Emperor. He will die for sure. Emperor Wu's empty eye sockets looked at Yuhauran. After giving him the final judgment of his fate, he raised his skull again and threatened the fire phoenix. If you want me to suppress the Heavenly Slayer demon Venerable again, release my life spirit immediately. Otherwise, I will choose to stand by and watch. Roar. Just as Martial Emperor Bai Gu's threatening voice faded away, a pure dragon roar suddenly sounded from the east of the ancient city. Along with the dragon roar, a green dragon that was more than 10,000 meters long rushed to the side of the fire phoenix. Then, it ordered Emperor Wu's white bones coldly. You can either suppress the Heavenly Slayer demon Venerable again, or I will break the life spirit seal and destroy your soul completely. Don't you dare! Emperor Wu's white bones clenched his fleshless hand tightly as he scolded fiercely. Roar! Just as Emperor Wu's white bones scolded, a deafening roar sounded from the west of the ancient city. Along with the deafening roar, a giant white tiger that was more than 1,000 meters long and more than 700 meters tall landed beside the green dragon. Then, the white tiger scolded Emperor Wu's white bones with murderous intent. Since the end of the primordial era, there is only one ending for anyone who dares to threaten the 4 great guardian families, no matter if it is a supreme being of the primordial realm or a powerful being born from the heavens and earth. Die. The word die didn't come from the white tiger's mouth. Instead, it came from a giant black tortoise that appeared silently in the ancient city. Due to the influence of his own cultivation, Yuhauran couldn't see through the blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise's true cultivation. However, from the terrifying aura that they emitted, he knew that his initial guess was wrong. Combined with the aura that Thaling's soul emitted when he recovered to the first tribulation demigod realm, Yuhauran knew that the 4 white-haired old men who used their ancestral bloodline to transform into divine beasts weren't Emperor Wu's 4th stage realm, as he had guessed at the beginning. It was very likely that their cultivation had reached the pinnacle of Emperor Wu's 9th stage realm. Unless the Heavenly Slayer demon Venerable was able to break through to the pinnacle of Emperor Wu's 9th stage realm in one go, he wouldn't be able to escape death today. Looking at the murderous aura that the blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise were emitting, Emperor Wu slowly loosened his grip. After lowering his questioning head, He walked towards the heavenly slayer demon Venerable, who had reached the pinnacle of Emperor Wu's second stage realm, and was trying his best to break through to the beginner stage of Emperor Wu's third stage realm. Gu Ling, although you have the cultivation of Emperor Wu's third stage realm, your life spirit has been sealed. You can only unleash the cultivation of a peak ninth stage martial honorable. The heavenly slayer demon Venerable reminded Gu Ling as he tried his best to break through to the beginner stage of Emperor Wu's third stage realm. Before I broke through to Emperor Wu's third stage realm, the power of my heavenly slayer demon Venerable's third stage realm sword skill was comparable to that of Emperor Wu's third stage realm. Now you won't be able to withstand a single blow. Gu Ling, on account of the fact that you have been training with me for thousands of years, you should step back. Since I'm going to die anyway, I'd rather die in the hands of an old friend like you. Faced with the kind reminder from the heavenly slayer demon Venerable, Emperor Wu's white bones, who seemed to have accepted his fate, replied with a smile. That's right, Emperor Wu's white bones was indeed smiling. Although there wasn't any flesh on the skull, everyone present could see the smile on Emperor Wu's white bones' face. However, it wasn't a happy smile. It was a bitter smile. Why bother? Faced with the bitter smile of Emperor Wu's white bones, the heavenly slayer demon Venerable, who had successfully broken through to the beginner stage of Emperor Wu's third stage realm sword skill, sighed softly. He waved the natal sword in his hand and used the great success realm sword skill to destroy the two white soul fires in Emperor Wu's white bones eye socket. However, no one noticed that when the two white soul fires in Emperor Wu's white bones eye sockets were destroyed, the martial emperor's white bones below Yu Haoran trembled slightly. The two green soul fires in its eye sockets gradually lit up with white flames. Chapter 1626. Inside White Bone City. The blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise hovered in mid-air as they faced the bones of Emperor Wu that had been easily killed by the Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable. They did not show any sadness in their eyes, nor did they show any anger. After looking at each other, the four divine beasts immediately scattered to the east, south, west, and north. They each took out a flag array that had their respective divine beasts' faces embroidered on it. Then, the four divine beasts spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the array flags that they had taken out. The array flags that had been infused with the blood essence expanded in the wind and quickly became huge array flags that were almost 1,000 miles wide. Then, the four divine beasts fused into their respective array flags. Then, countless clouds of green, white, red, and yellow shot out from the four flags. In just 3 minutes, the entire ancient city was completely shrouded in the four types of cloud. Yu Haoran forcibly stopped the teleportation talisman that had been activated. He raised his head and looked at the four array flags that seemed to cover the sky. He carefully sensed the aura contained in the four different colored clouds with a puzzled look in his eyes. When Thaling's cultivation recovered to the first tribulation demigod realm, and the terrifying aura that his soul emitted, he concluded that the four white-haired elders from the four great guardian families were very likely to be Emperor Wu's peak ninth stage mighty experts, and the Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable had just advanced to Emperor Wu's peak third stage mighty experts. The four peak ninth stage mighty experts of Emperor Wu's peak ninth stage mighty experts faced the Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable, who was only at the peak third stage mighty experts of Emperor Wu's peak ninth stage mighty experts. They could easily injure the Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable with just the terrifying aura condensed from their own cultivation. Then, why did the four white-haired elders from the four great guardian families look as if they were facing a great enemy? Not only did they directly use their ancestral bloodline to transform into divine beasts' bodies, but they also worked together to set up the four divine slaughtering formation that could trap and kill demigods. Unless the Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable had a powerful trump card that could injure demigod. It was because of this shocking speculation in his heart, Yuhaoran took the initiative to stop the teleportation talisman that had been activated. Blue Dragon is in charge of offense, White Tiger is in charge of offense, Vermilion Bird is in charge of offense, and Black Tortoise is in charge of defense. As the heaven-punishing demon Venerable continued to break through to the peak of third-grade Martial Emperor, he raised his head to look at the 4 formation flags that were gradually enveloped by the 4 colored clouds. 4 spiritual emperors, do you really think that you can trap me, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, again with the 4 divines slaughtering formation that can kill a third tribulation demigod? Zhu Tian, if you can reach the peak of Emperor Wu's 7th realm, and use that godly sword that is comparable to a natural treasure, you might be able to break through the defense of the 4 guardians god-slaughtering formation. In the face of the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's belittling question, the Blue Dragon who was in the lead position arrogantly retorted. But now, haha. In the face of Blue Dragon's arrogant retort, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor only laughed coldly and did not continue to refute. He instantly swallowed a lower level 6 spiritual vein and used the pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth contained in the spiritual vein to raise his cultivation to the peak of Emperor Wu's 3rd stage Divine Emperor realm. Then, the natal sword in his hand was replaced by a sword with a scabbard. This is. Seeing the sword with a scabbard in the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's hand, Yuhaoran immediately thought of the celestial ending sword that he had won from Zhou Mengling during the 5 regions hidden dragon ranking battle. Whether it was the color, the style, or the vigorous aura of the scabbard, the sword with a scabbard in the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's hand was exactly the same as Zhou Mengling's celestial ending sword. According to Thaling's introduction of the Prime Master of the Middle Ages, his natal weapons were called the 4 celestial slaying swords. They were composed of the celestial slaying sword, the celestial slaughtering sword, the celestial trapping sword, and the celestial ending sword. When the 4 swords were combined into one, they would become a supreme weapon. When they were separated, they would become upper-level weapons. Each of them had the terrifying power to kill a peak 9th stage martial god. Then, which of the remaining 3 divine weapons was the sword with a scabbard in the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's hand? Thinking of the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's title, Yuhaoran's eyes flashed with understanding. He finally understood why the 4 peak 9th stage Divine Emperor realm experts of the 4 great guardian families acted as if they were facing a great enemy when facing the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor. It was because among the Prime Master's natal divine swords, the celestial slaughtering sword, the celestial trapping sword, and the celestial ending sword were all upper-level weapons of the god realm. Only the celestial slaying sword, which was often used by the Prime Master, was not only at the peak of the god realm, but also had the terrifying power to kill a nascent supremacy. After understanding, Yuhaoran could not help but feel a trace of doubt in his heart. If his speculation was not wrong, the sword with a scabbard in the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's hand was the celestial slaying sword that could threaten a Prime Master. Then, how had he been captured alive by the almighty experts of the 4 great protector families? Moreover, with the terrifying sword chi of the celestial slaying sword, it would not be difficult to break the bone pagoda made from the bones of the peak 9th stage divine dragons of the Emperor Wu. Then, why was he suppressed for thousands of years? Once the celestial slaying sword is out, it will slaughter immortals and destroy gods. Holding the scabbard in one hand and the sword hilt in the other, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's divine sense tightly locked onto the 4 array flags as he roared with a slightly ferocious expression. As the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor gradually pulled out the celestial slaying sword from the scabbard, Yuhaoran could not help but immediately retreat to the edge of the ancient city. It was different from the terrifying sword chi that erupted when the peerless immortal was unsheathed. The moment the celestial slaying sword was unsheathed, in addition to the terrifying sword chi, there was also a kind of evil aura that could destroy all living things. This is the celestial slaying sword that is about to reach the prime master level of the 4 celestial slaying swords. Thaling, who was refining a special magic weapon in the victor, immediately stopped refining when he felt the familiar terrifying sword chi and instantly appeared in the space of Yuhauran's sea of consciousness. After seeing the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor slowly unsheathing the sword that was emitting an evil aura, he was extremely shocked and shouted involuntarily. Then, excitement instantly replaced the shocked expression on his face, as Thaling demanded in an unquestionable tone. Yuhauran, no matter what method you use, you must take the celestial slaying sword back from me. At the same time, Yuhauran chose to ignore Thaling's order as he directly reverted to his ancestral physical body that was almost 3,000 meters tall and mobilized the Rui Bell in his divine soul to merge into the ancestral physical body. Then, he looked at the celestial slaying sword that was about to be unsheathed with a serious expression. Blue Dragon, return to your position. White Tiger, return to your position. Vermilion Bird, return to your position. Black Tortoise, return to your position. Just as the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor was slowly unsheathing the celestial slaying sword from the scabbard, the roars of the Blue Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise could be heard from the 4 fluttering flags of the ancient city. Chapter 16:27. Inside White Bone City. When the 4 flags were connected, the entire ancient city was engulfed in darkness. At the same time, the celestial slaying sword, which had been completely unsheathed, emitted an evil aura that made Yuhauran instinctively feel a sense of fatal danger. Although he could leave the ancient city by using the positioning talisman, he could not bear to leave White Bone City directly if he wanted to know the final result of the battle between the heaven-punishing Demon Emperor and the Guardian families. Therefore, he could only ask for help from the Void Spirit Mouse, who could ignore most of the defensive formations, to see if it could lead him out of the ancient city temporarily. No problem. As it nodded in response to Yuhauran's request, the Void Spirit Mouse stretched out its tiny claws and swiped at the barrier formed by the formation flags. Then, a gap of more than 1 meter long and more than 40 centimeters wide appeared. Without any hesitation, Yuhauran led the Void Spirit Mouse out of the ancient city through the gap. The moment he left the defensive formation, an ear-piercing sound of a sword rang out. Accompanied by an ear-piercing sword hum, Yuhauran, who immediately turned to look, saw a white sword chi mixed with specks of blood. It directly destroyed the Black Tortoise formation flag that represented the northern part of the ancient city. Puff! The moment the sword chi broke the formation flag, accompanied by the sound of spitting blood, a white-haired elder in a dark yellow robe fell directly in front of the city gate below Yuhauran's feet. Sizzle! Yuhauran could not help but gasp when he saw Spirit Emperor Xianling fall in front of the city gate. When Emperor Wu's white bones looked at the northern part of the ancient city, he had seen the faces of the 4 white-haired elders in his empty eye sockets. Although the 4 of them were already white-haired elders, they still had the rosy and plump appearance of babies, which was enough to show that they still had a long life ahead of them. However, Spirit Emperor Xianling, who had fallen in front of the city gate, had a rosy and plump face, like a withered tree in winter, completely shriveled up. The exuberant life force was about to dry up like a mountain spring that was about to run out. Yuhauran, the 4 immortal slaying swords are comparable to Khanate's supreme treasures. They were forged by Prime Tongtian using the corpses of the 10 great ferocious beasts that dominated the primordial era. Just as Yuhauran was shocked by the white-haired old man's miserable state, Thaling began to dispel his doubts as usual. Furthermore, during the forging process of the immortal slaying swords, Prime Tongtian even slaughtered millions of beings of different cultivation realms and races, fusing their flesh, blood, and souls into the 4 swords. Therefore, the 4 immortal slaying swords are also known as the Swords of Slaughter, foreshadowing the arrival of death. Just as Thaling finished his explanation, Emperor Xianling, who had reached the end of his life, fell to the ground. The great Emperor Wu, who was at the peak of level 9, had finally become a skeleton. Thaling, you once demonstrated the power of the celestial slashing sword to me. Although the celestial slashing sword also contained a terrifying sword chi that could destroy heaven and earth, it did not emit the evil aura of the immortal slaying sword. Yu Haoran, who was also used to communicating with Thaling, did not care about the dead Emperor Xianling. Instead, he instinctively asked the question in his heart. That is because the body of the immortal slaying sword was forged from the bones of the strongest and most ferocious of the 10 great ferocious beasts, the Taotai, which had the power to devour heaven and earth. Furthermore, the flesh, blood, and souls of millions of beings were fused into the body of the immortal slaying sword. This caused the immortal slaying sword to contain a terrifying sword chi, as well as the power to devour the flesh, blood, souls, and lifespan of living beings. At this point, Thaling's 10 fingers quickly formed a seal. After the seal was fused into the ancient city, the black tortoise formation flag that was destroyed by the heaven-punishing demon emperor with the immortal slaying sword shrunk rapidly and finally appeared in his hand. The moment the black tortoise formation flag was taken away by Thaling, the ancient city, which was shrouded in darkness and fog, regained its clarity. This allowed Yu Haoran to clearly see what was happening in the ancient city. Sizzle! When he saw the heaven-punishing demon emperor hovering in mid-air with the immortal slaying sword in his hand, Yu Haoran gasped in shock. This was because the heaven-punishing demon emperor was in the same state as the Xianling emperor. Not only was his ruddy and plump face completely shriveled, but his breakthrough to the early stage 4th grade realm had also stopped. Yu Haoran, the devouring power of the immortal slaying sword does not differentiate between you and me. Regardless of whether it is the enemy or the person who wields the immortal slaying sword, as long as they use the immortal slaying sword, they will not be able to escape the fate of being devoured. Thaling, who had also noticed the state of the heaven-punishing demon emperor, said with a complicated expression when he saw the immortal slaying sword being sheathed again. Therefore, only the martial gods and supreme masters who are immortal can truly master and wield the immortal slaying sword. After hearing Thaling's heartfelt sigh, Yu Haoran instinctively felt a tinge of fear towards the immortal slaying sword. At the same time, he also wanted to know if the heaven-punishing demon emperor could continue to kill the remaining 3 peak 9th grade realm masters of Emperor Wu and his final outcome. After the 4 guardians god slaughtering formation was broken and the heaven-punishing demon emperor lost his strongest defense, he only needed 1 strike to completely kill the 3 early-stage 9th grade realm masters of Emperor Wu from the Blue Dragon clan, White Tiger clan, and Vermilion Bird clan. After revealing the true cultivation levels of the 4 great masters of the Guardian clans, Thaling also revealed the final outcome of both parties if they continued to wield the immortal slaying sword. And the heaven-punishing demon emperor is only left with 1 breath. Just as Thaling finished explaining the final outcome of both parties, the heaven-punishing demon emperor directly swallowed 2 lower level 6 spiritual veins. His expression was still domineering as he provoked the Green Spirit Emperor and the other 2, who had returned to their original forms after leaving the formation flags. Green Spirit Emperor, White Spirit Emperor, Vermilion Spirit Emperor, after losing the 4 Guardians God slaughtering formation and the Mystic Spirit Emperor's strongest defense, I don't know if you can continue to withstand the immortal slaying sword's all-conquering and all-devouring sword chi. Heaven punishing, in your current state, if you continue to wield the immortal slaying sword, I'm afraid you won't be any better than us. The Green Spirit Emperor threatened with a gloomy face. Haha! Faced with the Green Spirit Emperor's threat, the heaven-punishing demon emperor, who had regained his grip on the immortal slaying sword, could not help but laugh to the sky. After laughing for nearly a minute, the heaven-punishing demon emperor suddenly stopped laughing and roared at the Green Spirit Emperor and the other 2 with a ferocious expression. After thousands of years of accumulation and training, I, the heaven-punishing demon emperor, originally had the opportunity to directly reach the peak 5th grade realm of Emperor Wu. However, because of your greed and selfishness, I could only reach the peak 3rd grade realm of Emperor Wu in the end. Moreover, I lost the hope of continuing to reach the martial god realm in the future. Green Spirit Emperor, White Spirit Emperor, Vermilion Spirit Emperor, a person who has completely lost his future would not care about the destruction of his divine soul. Chapter 1628. In White Bone City, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, who was gripping the hilt of the immortal slaying sword tightly, did not have the courage to draw the immortal slaying sword again. He allowed the three of them to escape White Bone City with the help of the top-notch escape talismans. Then, the heaven-punishing demon emperor put away the immortal slaying sword and looked down at Yu Haoran, who was standing in front of the ancient city gates, with a kind smile on his face. Junior Yu Haoran pays his respects to Senior Heaven-Punishing. Seeing the heaven-punishing demon emperor's gaze, Yu Haoran quickly flew in front of him and greeted him respectfully. "Young man, why don't you call me master anymore?" The heaven-punishing demon emperor asked with a smile. "Senior, although this junior has accepted your legacy, I have not agreed to kowtow to you and become your disciple." Yu Haoran answered honestly. The heaven-punishing demon emperor was not angry at all. "At the same time, you did not believe me when you were trapped in the Bone Pagoda. Therefore, I could only use white lies to help you escape the Bone Pagoda and deal with the impending danger. Young man, the moment I escaped the Bone Pagoda, I already knew that you were lying to me." Hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, the heaven-punishing demon emperor's eyes flashed with a hint of loneliness. "Because you have already walked on your own path of martial arts, your future achievements will definitely surpass mine. I, the heaven-punishing demon emperor, am not qualified to guide your cultivation, let alone be your master." "Senior, you can't say that." Yu Haoran could feel the heaven-punishing demon emperor's arrogance dissipating. He knew that the heaven-punishing demon emperor was losing his Tao heart to continue climbing to the peak of martial arts. However, the heaven-punishing devil emperor waved his hand and interrupted him before he could finish his word. "Young man, I know the real condition of my body. Therefore, you don't have to waste your breath comforting me. Senior, other than having a certain level of achievement in the martial Tao, this junior is also an alchemy emperor realm alchemy master. I can refine many alchemy emperors that have already been lost." Yu Haoran didn't give up on persuading him just because the heaven-punishing devil emperor had waved his hand to interrupt him. Instead, he hoped that he could use his abilities as a pill emperor to revive the heaven-punishing devil emperor's gradually extinguishing Tao heart. After all, the heaven-punishing devil emperor's legacy was one of the key reasons why he was able to walk his own martial path and successfully create his own heaven's mandate mental cultivation method. Therefore, the flesh, soul, and lifespan that were devoured by the immortal execution sword, this junior can use the pill to retrieve them for you. Yu Haoran's persuasion and assurance made the heaven-punishing devil emperor feel very gratified. However, when he thought about his own condition, he couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Then, he asked solemnly, "Young man, do you have any treasure that can isolate one's aura?" "Yes." At the same time, Yu Haoran took out a wooden box specially used to store divine artifacts from his storage ring. After opening the wooden box, the heaven-punishing devil emperor reluctantly placed the immortal extermination sword into the wooden box. Just as his right hand that was holding the scabbard separated from the immortal extermination sword, the vitality in the heaven-punishing devil emperor's body started to drain rapidly. "Senior, what are you doing?" Yu Haoran's expression changed when he saw the heaven-punishing devil emperor's white hair falling rapidly, the skin on his hand drying rapidly, and his cultivation dropping directly to the martial saint realm. The heaven-punishing devil emperor shook his head gently at Yu Haoran. After he took out the immortal extermination sword with his trembling right hand, the skin on his hand became plump again and his cultivation instantly returned to the peak of Emperor Wu's 3rd grade. The only thing that didn't recover was his white hair. Young man, do you understand now? The heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, who had returned to his peak state, asked bitterly. Senior, I understand now. Yuhaoran nodded, indicating that he understood. As the saying goes, when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. Although the immortal extermination sword would devour one's flesh, soul, and lifespan, the immortal extermination sword would also absorb the essence of life that it had devoured while being concealed by the scabbard to maintain the life of the immortal extermination sword's wielder. It was also a pitiful life-saving opportunity. However, there was a limit to how much life could be maintained. Not only did the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor have to hold the immortal extermination sword tightly, but he also couldn't continue to use the sword's sword energy. Otherwise, with the little life left in the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, he would be completely devoured and his soul would be destroyed before the immortal extermination sword could be drawn out of the scabbard. After understanding the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's true condition, Yuhaoran felt pity for him and was even more concerned about his future. After all, even if he didn't use the immortal extermination sword, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, Emperor Wu's peak 3rd grade cultivation coupled with his self-created universal massacre sword technique was enough to easily defeat Emperor Wu, a peak 5th grade expert. He would still be one of the top experts in the profound sky continent for a short period of time. The great Emperor Qin's kingdom and the prince's mansion lacked experts like the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor who could suppress the weak. Back then, when I was suppressed in the Bone Pagoda by Emperor Wu of the 4 great guardian families, I sacrificed 1,000 years of my lifespan to completely sever my connection with the immortal extermination sword. Then, I hoped to use my monstrous talent in the martial way to break through to the martial god realm and refine the immortal extermination sword again. The heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, who had taken back the immortal extermination sword, reached out to caress the ancient scabbard. Flames of anger gradually appeared in his eyes. Now, all of this has been destroyed by the 4 spirit emperors of the 4 great guardian families. The heaven-punishing Devil Emperor suddenly raised the sword into the air. His robes fluttered in the wind as he swore at the top of his lungs. I, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, swear by the laws of heaven that before my life comes to an end, I will use all my strength to kill every single member of the 4 great guardian families. Although the laws of heaven that had fallen into a deep slumber would definitely not respond to the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's oath, Yuhaoran already knew the other party's determination from the way he swore the oath just now. Thus, he completely extinguished the idea of roping him into the prince's mansion. After swearing at the top of his lungs, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor gradually calmed down. Then, he looked at Yuhaoran with an apologetic expression. Young man, it was because of your timely reminder that I was able to break through the suppression of the Bone Pagoda in advance. It was also because of the spirit stones and spirit veins that I was able to successfully break through to the peak of the 3rd grade Emperor Wu realm and obtain the strength and opportunity to take revenge. It's just that the suppression of the Bone Pagoda for thousands of years has already caused me to use up all of my collection. Thus, I don't have anything to repay you with. Senior, with this junior's ability as a pill emperor, it's easy for me to obtain as many spirit stones and spirit veins as I want. Therefore, you don't have to worry about those spirit stones and spirit veins at all. As Yuhaoran waved his hand to console the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, he pointed at the millions of skeletons below and asked. Chapter 1629. In White Bones City. Young man, although I have been trapped in the Bone Pagoda for thousands of years, I know nothing about White Bones City because of the pagoda's suppression on my divine consciousness. The heaven-punishing demon emperor shook his head to show that he did not know the secrets of White Bone City. He looked down at the spot where the bone pagoda used to be and reminded Yi Futian with a tinge of fear in his eyes. However, every 100 years or so, a terrifying force will erupt from the ground of White Bone City. This terrifying force will destroy all the Emperor Wu-level white bones in the city. This is also the reason why there are no martial Grand Emperor White Bones in White Bone City, which is not under the control of the Heavenly Way, except for the bone spirits whose life souls are locked. The heaven-punishing demon emperor looked up at the sky and reminded Yi Futian with a serious expression. According to the time, the terrifying force will erupt from the ground of White Bone City today. You should leave this place as soon as possible. Thank you for your reminder, Senior. I understand. While nodding to indicate that he understood, Yu Haoran took out the supreme-grade venerable cudgel magic weapon. He planned to use all his strength to kill those revered martial artists who were completely stunned by the sword chi of the immortal killing sword before leaving the White Bone City. Even though the White Bones were frightened by the evil sword chi of the god-slaying sword, they were still martial honorable level White Bones. They were driven by their instincts and were not willing to be killed by Yu Haoran. As a result, Yi Futian's speed of collecting high-quality, martial honorable level White Bones was not very fast. Therefore, the heaven-punishing demon emperor, who was full of guilt, smiled when he saw that Yu Haoran's staff could only kill 3 to 5 martial honorable level White Bones at a time. He took out his natal sword and used his self-created heaven-punishing sword technique. He could kill more than 100 martial honorable level White Bones with one strike. Yu Haoran was pleasantly surprised by the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor's assistance, as well as the large-scale slaughter of the martial revered realm White Bones. He immediately cupped his hands and thanked the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor. Then, he ordered the Void Spirit Mouse to collect the floating soul fires. After collecting close to 5,000 high-level martial venerable soul fires, Yu Haoran's sixth sense suddenly warned him of extreme danger. Yu Haoran immediately stopped collecting soul fires and flew out of the ancient city. He shouted a warning to the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor who was in midair. Senior, leave White Bone City immediately. The heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, who wielded the immortal slaying sword, was far more sensitive to danger than Yu Haoran. The heaven-punishing Devil Emperor instantly appeared beside Yu Haoran and brought him out of the wasteland where White Bone City was located after sensing that the immortal slaying sword was trembling in fear. Just as the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor reached the wasteland, a terrifying energy erupted from beneath White Bone City. Then, with the ancient city as the center, the terrifying energy swept across the entire wasteland in all directions. Looking at the terrifying energy that swept across the wasteland in an instant, Yu Haoran felt extremely lucky. He quickly cupped his hands and thanked the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor. Senior, thank you for saving my life. When his sixth sense warned him of extreme danger, he thought that he should immediately leave the ancient city and search for the source of the terrifying energy that erupted from beneath White Bone City. He also wanted to know how the energy affected the countless white bones in the city. If the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor had not used the law of speed to bring him out of the wasteland in time, he would have been killed by the terrifying energy. You're welcome. After waving his hand, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor tore open the void in front of him and disappeared into the wasteland after leaving behind a reminder. Young man, take care. Senior, take care. Yu Haoran cupped his hands and bade farewell to the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor. Thaling, thank you. After the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor had completely calmed down, Yu Haoran thanked Thaling in his sea of consciousness with a complicated expression. After all, when Thaling had first discovered the god-slaying sword, he had given him a death order that he must obtain the god-slaying sword. Now, in the face of the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor, who could no longer use the immortal exterminating sword and whose cultivation was only at the peak of the third-grade martial emperor realm, Yuhauran did not use his powerful strength as a third tribulation demigod to snatch the heaven-punishing devil emperor away. This could be considered as giving the heaven-punishing devil emperor a way out. This caused the estrangement in Yuhauran's heart to gradually melt. No need. After replying coldly, Thaling returned to Victor's room at the top of the pagoda and sat cross-legged on the jade bed again. He used his powerful divine consciousness to condense a cherry-sized water droplet. Then, he quickly formed a seal with his 10 fingers. After the 3 seals that he formed merged with the water droplet, the cherry-sized water droplet quickly turned into a layer of water screen. An image appeared on the water screen. It was a clear image of the heaven-punishing devil emperor. In the image, the heaven-punishing devil emperor, who had left the ancient wasteland by tearing the void, appeared at the edge of a mountain range that was full of vitality. After searching carefully, he found a young man who was wearing a long green robe. He had a valiant temperament and his cultivation was already at the peak of the third stage martial honorable realm. After using Emperor Wu's strength as a peak third stage martial honorable realm to directly knock out and seal the young man in green robes, the heaven-punishing devil emperor brought the young man to a hidden forest. Then, he used a secret technique to search the young man's memories. After checking the young man's memories, the heaven-punishing devil emperor did not remove his palm from the young man's head. Instead, he started to devour the young man's flesh, soul, and life force like the god-slaying sword. What a cunning heaven-punishing devil emperor! Thaling could not help but sneer as he watched the heaven-punishing devil emperor devour the life force of the young man in green robes on the water screen. Not only did he become more energetic, but his white hair also grew back on his head. If I didn't have a good relationship with Daoist Tongtian and have studied the god-slaying sword of the 4 god-slaying swords, I'm afraid I would have been fooled by you. The heaven-punishing devil emperor, who was about to return to his peak state with the help of the young man's life essence and blood, immediately felt that he was being spied on. Without hesitation, he waved the god-slaying sword's scabbard, and the end of the scabbard hit the hidden void where he felt that someone was spying on him. Bang! Just as the god-slaying sword's scabbard hit a certain point in the void, the water screen in front of Thaling suddenly shattered and turned into countless small water droplets. Thaling waved his hand to wipe away the countless small water droplets floating in the air. He frowned and speculated to himself. The place where the heaven-punishing devil emperor appeared just now seemed to be the Blue Dragon mountain range where the Blue Dragon family is located. Could it be that he really did what he swore and went all out to hunt down the people of the 4 great guardian families? Chapter 1630. In the Sea of Consciousness on the top floor of the Victor. No! Immediately after, the tower spirit shook its head, and a cold look appeared in its eyes as it denied itself. Someone who can get the approval of the god-slaying sword is definitely not a good person who keeps his promises. Then what is the real reason for the heaven-punishing devil emperor to appear in the Blue Dragon mountain range? Recalling the scene that appeared in the water curtain just now, especially when the heaven-punishing devil emperor was devouring the life essence of the young man in green, the corner of his mouth showed a trace of complacency, and the faint scarlet light on the hilt of the god-slaying sword in his hand, Thaling suddenly opened his eyes wide and continued to speculate to himself. The bloodline of the divine dragon in the Blue Dragon clan. The heaven-punishing devil emperor must want to devour the bloodline of the divine dragon, which contains a huge amount of life essence, and use it to break through to the martial god realm and get the approval of the god-slaying sword. After speculating the real plan of the heaven-punishing devil emperor to appear in the Blue Dragon mountain range, Thaling's face showed a trace of a strange smile. In that case, I, Supreme Purple Spirit, will lend you a hand and help you get more of the divine dragon's bloodline. Then, Thaling looked through the sea of consciousness at the gloomy Yuhauran, and couldn't help but sigh. At the same time, he flashed away from the victor and left the sea of consciousness. Thaling's cold response made Yuhauran's heart, which had just dissipated a little, firm again. Then, he took a deep breath and calmed his agitated mood. He turned his head and looked at the wasteland and the ancient city that had completely returned to normal, and his eyes showed a trace of desire. After thinking deeply, he carefully stepped on the ground of the wasteland. His sixth sense didn't give him any warning of danger. Taking back his left foot, Yuhauran turned his head and ordered the void spirit mouse on his shoulder. "Little spirit, check carefully to see if there is any fatal danger in the wasteland and White Bone City." "Got it." After nodding in response, the ethereal spirit mouse jumped onto the ground of the wasteland and approached the ancient city with its 4 short legs. Seeing that the empty spirit mouse hadn't issued any warnings of danger, Yuhauran held the location teleportation talisman tightly and strode into the wasteland. The void spirit mouse didn't sense any danger, and it continued to advance faster and faster. This forced Yuhauran to use the power of the law of speed to keep up with it. Finally, 10 minutes later, he and the empty spirit mouse returned to the gate of the ancient city. "Yuhauran, wait a moment." After instructing Yuhauran, the void spirit mouse scurried to the city gate and entered the ancient city through a tunnel. "Yuhauran, there is no longer any danger in the city. Come in quickly." After only 3 seconds, the voice of the empty spirit mouse came from behind the city gate. Pushing the city gate open, Yuhauran stepped into the ancient city. Then, a look of shock appeared in his eyes. Then, he beckoned the empty spirit mouse to sit on his shoulder, and directly rose into the air to re-examine the ancient city that had been swept by the terrifying power. At this time, the entire ancient city was completely covered by a layer of white bone powder. It looked like a thick layer of snow. At this moment there was not a single complete skeleton in the ancient city, because all the bones in the ancient city had been destroyed by the terrifying power and turned into white powder. After recovering from his shock, Yuhauran immediately mobilized all his divine sense to carefully examine all the white powder in the ancient city. Then, a trace of disappointment appeared in his eyes. Through the careful observation of his divine sense just now, he found that when the terrifying power destroyed the bones, it also directly wiped out the soul fire in their empty eye sockets. This destroyed half of his dream of taking the risk to return to the ancient city. This was because he wanted to collect a large number of soul fires of the Martial Grandmaster, Martial King, Martial Emperor and Martial Saint realms to enhance the strength of the Emperor Qin's soldiers, so that they could protect the entire southern region in the future when disaster came. After taking a deep breath and dispelling the depression in his heart, Yuhauran began to look for the location of the collapsed bone tower. Finally, he found the exact location of the bone tower through the undestroyed ancient city buildings. After waving his sleeves and blowing away the white powder covering the remains of the bone tower with his powerful spiritual energy, Yuhauran slowly landed on the original site of the bone tower. Then, he narrowed his eyes and carefully observed. But the result was that he found nothing. "Shaoling, did you find any hidden treasures underground?" Since there was nothing on the surface, Yuhauran could only hope that the underground could accommodate the bone tower. Because he seriously suspected that the terrifying power that erupted from the ancient city was very likely to come from a celestial device that could accommodate the bone tower. It was not inferior to a primordial treasure. "I didn't sense the aura of any treasure." After closing its small eyes, the empty spirit mouse used its innate ability to sense treasures to carefully sense the depth of 10,000 meters underground. The final result was also that it found nothing. In that case, forget it. Even the empty spirit mouse could not sense the abnormality underground. Even if he was unwilling to give up, Yuhauran had to choose to give up. "Let's go." Motioning the empty spirit mouse to his shoulder, Yuhauran was about to fly away from the ancient city. Suddenly, 2 white soul fires jumped out of the pile of white powder not far away. Then, with a speed that transcended time and space, they directly appeared in front of his eyebrows. The two white soul fires' sneak attack was so fast that Yuhauran had no time to mobilize the defense of his sea of consciousness. He could only let the two white soul fires enter the space of his sea of consciousness. Ha! The two white soul fires that rushed into the space of his sea of consciousness immediately merged together, and then turned into a silver dragon with a body of more than 10,000 meters. Looking at the boundless space of his sea of consciousness in front of him, the silver dragon could not help laughing proudly to the sky. After quickly summoning Aotian and He Xiong from the beast dragon space and telling them to protect him, Yuhauran directly sat down cross-legged and immediately mobilized all his consciousness into the sea of consciousness. While secretly calling for Thaling and the victor, he also mobilized the wishful bell to protect his divine soul. But what made him extremely disappointed, and even a little discouraged, was that in the face of his urgent call and the imminent death crisis of his divine soul in the sea of consciousness, Thaling's final choice was to be reasonable. This made the gap in his heart become like a mountain in an instant. In desperation, he could only secretly inform the two doppelgangers in the victor, who were cultivating in seclusion, to be ready to support at any time. Then, the divine soul stood up, looked at the silver dragon floating in the air of his sea of consciousness, and asked calmly, "If I'm not wrong, you should be the bone spirit that was killed by the heaven-punishing devil emperor." Chapter 1631. In White Bone City. Ignoring the silver-white dragon's sarcastic praise, Yuhauran lifted his head and looked at Victor, who was hidden in his sea of consciousness. He looked at the quiet top of the pagoda, and a sense of loss flashed across his eyes. The estrangement that formed in his heart turned into a mountain peak. After that, he withdrew his gaze from Victor and looked at the silver-white dragon indifferently. His tone was as calm as water as he asked, "Gu Ling, just tell me what you want to do. Kid, weren't you smart just now? Can't you guess what I, the proud snow divine dragon, am trying to do?" Yuhauran's overly calm performance made the silver-white dragon rather unhappy. When it swung its huge dragon tail and rushed down, it continued to mock and ridicule. Possession? No. When he sensed that the second avatar of Victor, who had left quietly, was using the exquisite chessboard to set up a formation that could trap and kill a demigod's godly soul, Yuhauran secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he began to use his advantage in words to stall for time. As if he had guessed Ao Shue's intention, he frowned and muttered to himself in disbelief. Possession between living creatures, other than the restriction of bloodline and physical attributes, is definitely impossible for living creatures of different races to possess one another. Otherwise, the godly soul that was possessed would definitely die. As if it enjoyed watching its opponent struggle before death, Ao Shue stopped abruptly and looked at Yuhauran, who was deeply troubled even though he spoke very slowly. Ao Shue looked at him with a smug look in his eyes. "If it's not possession, then what is your real intention?" Looking up at Ao Shue, who had stopped, Yuhauran frowned and questioned after a hint of joy flashed across his heart. "Think about it yourself." Looking at Yuhauran, who was frowning and obviously in doubt and trouble, Ao Shue felt very comfortable. At the same time, she ordered with a smug look on her face. As she pretended to think hard, she communicated with the second avatar in her mind. "Brother Ran, can the celestial and god-slaying formation trap and kill Ao Shue's dragon soul?" Yuhauran asked worriedly. "Brother Yu, don't worry." The second clone, who was fully focused on setting up the formation with the help of the nimble chessboard, replied in a relaxed tone. "If that silver-white dragon had a dragon's body, even if Emperor Wu's cultivation was only at the peak of level 3, we would still have to abandon this body and flee for our lives. However, it's just a dragon soul that has temporarily attained the level of a first tribulation demigod through some unknown means. As long as it falls into the formation I've set up, its life and death will be in our hands." Brother Ran, are you sure? Yu Haoran asked in surprise. Before the heaven-punishing demon emperor killed Gu Ling, he mentioned that Ao Shui, whose life soul was locked, had the cultivation of the peak of the third-rank Emperor Wu. Now, the terrifying aura emanating from the silver-white dragon's soul was not inferior to the pagoda spirit's when its cultivation level had recovered to the first tribulation demigod level. This meant that it must have obtained an unimaginable opportunity when the ancient city erupted with such terrifying power. Coupled with the fact that Ao Shui had been staying in the ancient city to guard the Bone Tower and suppress the heaven-punishing demon emperor in the Bone Tower, it must know the secret hidden in White Bone City. Therefore, Yu Haoran not only wanted to overcome the crisis of the Sea of Consciousness at this time, but also wanted to capture Ao Shui's dragon soul and thoroughly investigate the shocking secret hidden in White Bone City, one of the 10 forbidden places in Tianxian continent. Brother Yu, I'm 100% sure. The second clone replied solemnly. Okay, hurry up and set up the formation to slay immortals and gods. I'll think of a way to buy you some time. After getting the confirmation from the second clone, Yu Haoran was completely relieved. At the same time, he raised his head and looked at Ao Shui, who was full of complacency, with a terrifying cold light flashing in his eyes. Boy, have you thought of it or not? After waiting for nearly 5 minutes, Yu Haoran was still frowning and thinking hard. This made Ao Shui a little impatient, and she couldn't help but scold him sternly. It is said that I know that among the dozens of branches of the ancient divine dragon, there is a branch of dragons that has never been recognized by the divine dragon, but they are still allowed to live on the divine dragon island. Through telepathy, Yu Haoran sensed that the second clone would only need around 20 seconds to set up the formation. Therefore, after relaxing his furrowed brows, Yu Haoran directly revealed that he had already guessed the other party's intentions. And this branch of dragons is the Bone Dragon, which is good at manipulating the divine soul and corpses of living creatures. Presumably, you, Ao Shui, are a bone dragon that can refine puppets and manipulate the divine soul. Boy, I didn't expect you to know the extinct bone dragon in the Middle Ages, and you know the ability of the bone dragon. Seeing that Yu Haoran not only guessed her intention, but also pointed out her origin, Ao Shui's huge dragon eyes flashed with a trace of shock, and she couldn't help but praise him. Gu Ling, I'm just a small ant in the martial honored realm. Is it worth it for you to take the risk to occupy my mind and manipulate my divine soul? Yu Haoran asked knowingly. Small ant in the martial honored realm. After hearing Yu Haoran's self-evaluation, Ao Shui seemed to feel a kind of naked humiliation, and she couldn't help but scold him angrily. Boy, you're not even 20 years old. Not only do you have the cultivation of peak 9th grade martial honored realm, but your physical body grade and Yuanli have also advanced to peak 1st grade Emperor Wu. If a rare genius like you is a small ant, then what are living creatures like us, who have cultivated for hundreds or even thousands of years to advance to the next realm? Through the means of self-modesty, and then taking the opportunity to induce the intention of manipulating the divine soul, it was a very normal means of communication between people. However, Yu Haoran was not only shocked by Ao Shui's great change in mood, but also vaguely guessed that her rapid advancement in cultivation might have brought about a slight change and flaw in her state of mind, which was more advantageous for him to use the celestial slaying god formation to trap and kill her. Brother Yu, it's done. Just as Ao Shui, who was in a rage, was about to capture Yu Haoran's divine soul alive, she heard the sound of the second avatar setting up the formation in time. Ao Shui, if you have the guts, come with me directly. Between the original body and the avatar, besides the instantaneous transfer and integration of the physical body, the same could be done between the divine soul. Therefore, before the divine soul integrated into the sea of consciousness of the second avatar, Yu Haoran looked up and provoked Ao Shui. Chapter 1632. In the white bone city, after his divine soul left the second clone sea of consciousness, Yuhauran turned his head and looked at the proud snow dragon soul that was rushing towards him. He directly entered the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation that was arranged with the help of the exquisite chessboard. The second clone was hiding at the edge of the formation, waiting for the best time to activate the formation. The proud snow dragon soul that was completely blinded by anger, or it could be said that its arrogance and conceit had blinded its mind. It did not think about whether there was any abnormality in the position where Yuhauran was standing, nor did it discover the second clone hiding at the edge of the formation. It directly plunged into the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation. Formation, activate. Just as the proud snow dragon soul rushed into the array, the second doppelganger appeared in front of the array in a flash and immediately threw out a red array flag. After that, his 10 fingers quickly formed a seal and used the seal to instantly open the immortal slaying god slaughtering array. With the help of the divine soul's transfer and fusion, Yuhauran reappeared in front of the formation. He looked at the proud snow dragon soul that was suffering from the formation's attack with a dignified expression. "Damn brat, cunning little bastard, hateful human, you actually dare to use the formation to frame me, the proud snow dragon god. Brat, just you wait. After I break the formation's defense, I will definitely refine you into the world's ugliest puppet. I will let you accept the world's ridicule and disdain." Seeing that the proud snow dragon soul didn't care about the damage of the array's attack power at all and was still looking for the weak points of the array's defense, Yuhauran asked with a bit of worry and a guilty conscience. "Brother Ran, is there any problem?" "Brother Yu, the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation has a total of 9 levels, corresponding to the 3 levels of Emperor Wu, martial god and sovereign realm." While his 10 fingers continued to form seals, the second clone introduced the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation's power in detail. Now the formation has only activated the first level, it only has the power to injure Emperor Wu from the peak of the first to the third stage. When I activate the formation's power to the third level, this dragon soul will not be able to jump around like it is now. Brother Ran, with your current cultivation in formations, how many levels of the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation can you activate? 9 layers of the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation could trap and kill supreme existences of the supremacy realm. Yuhauran asked excitedly after hearing the second clone's detailed introduction of the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation. 3rd floor. Victor's second clone paused slightly, and he turned to look at Victor, who was hidden in his sea of consciousness, in a resigned manner. "Brother Yu, unless my array formation cultivation can reach the pinnacle of the array emperor and completely refine the exquisite chessboard, I will not be able to activate the 4th level of the immortal slaying divine slaughtering array. Brother Ran, there are some things that neither you nor I can force. Everything can only be left to fate." Yuhauran knew that between the main body and the 2 doppelgangers, the second doppelganger had the deepest feelings for Thaling and was also the one who was most reluctant to let Thaling leave. However, the estrangement between them had already formed, and a temporary separation would allow them to calm down completely. Then, they could calmly think about the reason for the estrangement and decide whether they could continue to fight side by side in the end. Therefore, after quickly retracting his gaze from Victor, Yuhauran replied indifferently. "Sigh." The main body emphasized the idea of leaving everything to fate, and the second doppelganger was suddenly unable to say anything. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. Then, after readjusting his emotions, he continued to speed up the formation of seals. After the second doppelganger successfully activated the 2nd level of the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation, the proud snow dragon soul, who felt that the power of the formation had increased tenfold, immediately became nervous. While it was no longer cursing, it tried its best to find the weak points of the formation and strive to break out as soon as possible. However, after the second doppelganger successfully activated the third level of the immortal slaying god slaughtering formation, the proud snow dragon soul, who could no longer withstand the attacks of the formation, began to beg bitterly. Young hero, the proud snow dragon god knows that it was wrong. Please stop the attack of the formation immediately. If he wanted to know the secret hidden in White Bone City, he had to let the proud snow dragon soul feel the threat of death. Only then would it confess everything honestly. Therefore, not only did Yu Haoran ignore the pleas of the proud snow dragon soul, but he also asked the second doppelganger to continue increasing the power of the formation. Young hero, what do you want me, the proud snow dragon god, to do in order to stop the attack of the formation? As the power of the formation continued to increase, the proud snow dragon soul immediately felt the threat of death. This caused it to be deeply frightened, and it could not help but take the initiative to ask for a solution. Gu Ling, if you want me to stop the attack of the formation temporarily, you only need to answer 2 of my questions. Seeing that the grade of the proud snow dragon soul had been forcefully reduced to the peak of Emperor Wu rank 9 by the power of the formation, Su Mo knew that the threat level was about to be reached. Therefore, Yu Haoran immediately gestured to the second doppelganger to control the power of the formation slightly. Then, he said coldly, "Young hero, as long as you are willing to stop the attack of the formation, not to mention 2 questions, even if there are 10 questions, I will answer all of them to the best of my ability." Similarly, the proud snow dragon soul felt that its grade had fallen to the peak of Emperor Wu rank 9. At the same time, it was even more fearful. At the same time, it immediately agreed to Yu Haoran's request. Firstly, how did you advance to the level of a demigod in just half an hour? Yu Haoran looked at the proud snow dragon soul with anticipation. However, his tone of questioning was very calm. The aura of death. As if it had already anticipated the question that Yu Haoran wanted to ask, the proud snow dragon soul replied without the slightest hesitation. The terrifying power that exploded in White Bone City just now was actually the purest aura of death. This aura of death is destructive to other living beings. However, to us, who have died long ago, it is equivalent to a miracle elixir. And I used the method of dividing my soul to break free from the shackles of my life soul. Then, I used the rich aura of death to temporarily raise my grade to the level of a demigod. Why were the other bones in the ancient city destroyed by the aura of death? When the first question was answered, Yu Haoran, who had a second question in his heart, immediately asked. Before the terrifying power of the ancient city erupted, the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor had given him a detailed introduction. He said that the ancient city would erupt with a terrifying power every 100 years or so. The terrifying power would directly destroy the bones above the level of Emperor Wu. However, it would not harm the bones below the level of Emperor Wu. However, the terrifying power of the ancient city this time, or the rich aura of death, was completely different from the situation described by the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor. Chapter 1633. In White Bone City. Facing Yu Haoran's questioning, the proud snow dragon soul's huge dragon eyes immediately revealed a trace of fear and shook its head to indicate. "Don't ask me, I don't know either. Bone Spirit, what kind of secret is hidden under White Bone City?" Through the fear in the proud snow dragon soul's eyes, Yu Haoran knew that it was not lying. It really did not know why the Qi of death that erupted from the ancient city this time was completely different from before. Therefore, he did not continue to dwell on the first question. Instead, he asked the question that he wanted to know the answer to the most. "Actually, I don't know what kind of secret is hidden under White Bone City." Faced with Yu Haoran's second question, the proud snow dragon soul frowned and explained. "It's just that when the Qi of death erupts from White Bone City every 100 years, I can vaguely feel that there is something hidden under the Bone Pagoda. Just as the proud snow dragon soul was about to reveal what was hidden under the bone pagoda, a force that made Yuhauran and his second avatar extremely fearful appeared out of thin air in the formation of the Sea of Consciousness space. It instantly killed the proud snow dragon soul, who had no time to escape. With the death of the proud snow dragon soul, the terrifying force that appeared out of thin air in the formation of the Sea of Consciousness space also disappeared. Brother Ran, remove the immortal slaying formation and put away the exquisite chessboard. Looking at the proud snow dragon soul and the terrifying force that disappeared in the formation, Yuhauran ordered his second avatar with a gloomy face. Got it. After nodding his head, his second avatar quickly removed the formation and put away the exquisite chessboard. After that, he did not immediately return to the victor. Instead, he continued to stand behind Yuhauran. Turning his head to look at his second avatar standing behind him, Yuhauran ordered with a complicated expression, "Let's go back. Brother Yu, I have a good relationship with Elder Pagoda. Perhaps we can mediate." Ignoring Yuhauran's order, his second avatar kindly reminded him. But before he could finish his reminder, he was interrupted by Yuhauran. "You don't have to interfere in the matter between me and Thaling. Go back immediately." "All right." In the face of Yuhauran's stern rebuke, the second clone shrugged and returned to the victor with a helpless expression. Appearing in front of Victor in a flash, Yuhauran looked up at the top of the tower and shouted, "Thaling, come out, I have something to say to you." After waiting for a full 30 seconds, the Thaling did not appear in his Sea of Consciousness, and Victor's tower door did not open on its own. "Thaling, I'm giving you one last chance. Immediately come out and explain everything that happened during this period of time. Otherwise, you'll have to take the real Victor and leave my Sea of Consciousness." Thaling's disregard completely infuriated Yuhauran. After quickly rising to the same height as the top of the tower, he threatened with an incomparably fierce expression. But in the face of Yuhauran's threat, Thaling still did not appear in his Sea of Consciousness. "All right, I already know your attitude." The fierce expression was replaced by a sneer. Yuhauran gnashed his teeth and nodded. Then, he turned around and left Victor, his consciousness immediately returning to his physical body. Just as Yuhauran's consciousness left the space of his Sea of Consciousness, a gap suddenly opened in his Sea of Consciousness. Immediately after, Thaling, with a faint smile on his face, reappeared in front of Victor in his Sea of Consciousness. The aura of death. But just as he was about to step into the top floor of Victor, a trace of a special aura left in the space of his Sea of Consciousness immediately attracted his attention. In an instant, Thaling appeared at the position where his second clone had once set up the immortal slaying divine slaughtering formation. He carefully sensed the remaining aura of death and could not help muttering to himself. A demigod and a supreme skeletal dragon had appeared here. After muttering to himself, Thaling suddenly thought of Yuhauran's safety and immediately used his divine consciousness to check. After seeing that Yuhauran was safe and sound, he could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Then, through the space of his Sea of Consciousness, Thaling looked at the underground of White Bone City. A frightening cold light flashed in his eyes. After his consciousness returned to his physical body, Yuhauran immediately stopped cultivating and stood up. Then, he used his mind to recall Aotion and the Black Bear into the beast pet space. After that, he called the Void Spirit Mouse and immediately left White Bone City. Looking down at the ancient city covered in white bone dust, a trace of hatred appeared in his eyes. "Although I don't know who you are and what realm you are in, since you dared to intrude into my Sea of Consciousness, Yuhauran, it is tantamount to directly challenging my dignity. Then, in order to protect the dignity of Yuhauran, you and I will have a battle of dignity in the future." After a silent shout, Yuhauran forcibly suppressed the surging murderous intent in his heart. After using his fastest speed to reach the edge of the wilderness, he immediately used the method of tearing the void to speed up to the prince's mansion in Xianyang City. 2 days later, using the method of tearing the void, he successfully returned to the prince's mansion. After a simple greeting to Qin Ling Fei and the others, he directly went to the cultivation room in his courtyard. After that, he did not take out the spiritual stones and spiritual veins to cultivate, nor did he use the high-level martial Venerable Soul Fire to break through the realm of Emperor Wu. His eyes revealed a trace of struggle as he bent his knees and sat cross-legged in the cultivation room. Thaling. After half an hour of careful consideration, the struggle in his eyes was gradually replaced by determination. Yuhaoran once again called out to Thaling in his sea of consciousness. Thaling, who refused to appear no matter how he called out to his soul when his soul was in mortal danger, appeared in the space of his sea of consciousness as soon as he called out. This made Yuhaoran feel even more disappointed, but at the same time, the decision he had just made became even more firm. Yuhaoran, when you encountered the undead? Thaling, who appeared in the space of his sea of consciousness, wanted to immediately explain why he did not appear when Yuhaoran's soul was in mortal danger. However, he suddenly realized that this might expose his secret of secretly leaving Victor, as well as his carefully arranged plan. In the end, before he could finish his explanation, he took the initiative to remain silent. Thaling, go! When Thaling took the initiative to explain at the beginning, Yuhaoran's determined expression immediately became hesitant, and his eyes revealed a look of expectation. However, after he fell silent again, his hesitant expression was once again replaced by determination, and he coldly requested. Thaling's soul suddenly trembled, and instantly appeared in the cultivation room. He looked at Yuhaoran with disbelief in his eyes. What did you just say? Thaling, take your original Victor and leave. Leave Yuhaoran's sea of consciousness and go where you should go. Yuhaoran stated his request in more detail. Chapter 1634. The Prince's Mansion, in the Training Room. That's right. Facing Thaling's stern question, Yuhaoran nodded his head to confirm, while still maintaining a cold expression as he explained. Because I don't want a hidden danger that I can't see through, that doesn't save me, and that can kill me at any time, to continue to stay in my knowledge sea. Yuhaoran's words just now were not so much an explanation, but rather a question, and Thaling, who had too many concerns in his heart, simply couldn't refute his question just now. In the end, he could only lower his head and choose to remain silent. After 3 minutes of silence, Thaling raised his head and looked straight into Yuhaoran's eyes. His eyes revealed a trace of expectation as he pleaded. Yuhaoran, let me continue to stay in your knowledge sea for 3 years. After 3 years, I will tell you everything truthfully. At that time, you will understand my painstaking efforts. Thaling, you and I have an agreement before. In order to maintain mutual trust, we will not hide any secrets from each other. Facing Thaling's pleading gaze, Yuhaoran's eyes flashed with a trace of hesitation. But when he thought of the sneak attack by the proud snow dragon soul in his knowledge sea, and the terrifying power that appeared out of nowhere in his knowledge sea, Thaling's cold and indifferent look on the side, the hesitation in his eyes immediately disappeared, and he directly gave the other party the final choice of staying or leaving. So, either you confess everything to me now, or you take your original Victor and immediately leave my knowledge sea. Yuhaoran, do you really want to be so heartless? Facing Yuhaoran's final choice, Thaling withdrew the expectation in his eyes and coldly questioned. It seems that you have made your final choice. Then, please take the treasures you need and leave now. Thaling's attitude of rather coldly questioning than confessing everything made Yuhaoran's heart completely turn to ashes, and at the same time, he directly gave the order to drive him away. Yuhaoran, I guarantee that you will regret this. After yelling angrily, Thaling immediately returned to Victor's body in his sea of consciousness. Then, he sent all the treasures that he had already sorted out to the training room. He directly brought Victor out of the sea of consciousness and left the residence of the prince consort. Looking at the prince's mansion that was floating in the air, Thaling, whose eyes were burning with anger, immediately raised his hand. Just as he was about to destroy the mansion that he had personally remodeled, he unexpectedly sensed a cold and emotionless gaze coming from the mansion. Looking at Yusiki, who was sitting cross-legged on the white tiger statue, he thought of the mantra of great oblivion that he had imparted to her, and then he thought of the bits and pieces of him and Yu Haoran knowing each other for more than 3 years. Infinite tenderness emerged in his heart, and the burning anger in his eyes gradually subsided. In the end, Thaling could not help but sigh. Then, he directly tore open the void above the prince's mansion and left Xianyang City, and left the southern mountain range. Ignoring the cultivation resources and treasures that had almost filled the entire training room, Yu Haoran foolishly looked in the direction where Thaling had disappeared. A layer of mist gradually appeared in his eyes. If not for the 3 months that Thaling had given him to accelerate time, he would not have been able to save his sister from Wang Ru's hands, and preserve his character from He Jiqiang's hands. If not for Thaling's use of the blood ginseng and Victor's origin energy, his sister would not have been able to repair her destroyed dantian and meridians, and completely change her tragic life. She would also not have been able to obtain the mantra of great oblivion, and become a young genius whose name shook the Tianxian continent. If not for Thaling's timely reminder, he would not have known that in every realm of the martial way there was actually a small realm of perfect 10th grade, and he would not have been able to rely on his profound accumulation to successfully break through to the perfect 10th grade. If not for Thaling's countless help, he would probably have died in the trial of the Blue Moon's secret realm. If not for Thaling, Yu Haoran's resolute heart suddenly hesitated as he recalled the 3 years that he had known and accompanied Thaling, the experiences, adventures, and heartwarming scenes that they had experienced together. When he thought of how Thaling had still selflessly saved him when he was ambushed by Sima Chenkai and the Green Flood Dragon in the Qinling mountain range, the barrier in his heart was instantly broken by tenderness. It also made him immediately rush out of the training room to chase after Thaling, who he had forcefully chased away. But unfortunately, looking at the crack in the void that was slowly repairing above the prince's mansion, he knew that not only was he a step too late, he also knew that after today's parting, he would not be able to predict whether he would be an enemy or a friend in the future. The unintentional regret that instantly surged in his heart made him unable to help but roar towards the sky. Yu Haoran, who had lost control of his emotions, had the cultivation of a complete 10th grade martial honorable, and Emperor Wu's physical body and Yuanli. A terrifying aura that did not lose to the might of the heavens quickly rose from Yu Haoran's body. Under the pressure of the terrifying aura, countless living beings in the entire Xianyang city trembled as they knelt on the ground. Their eyes were filled with fear and fanaticism as they looked at the young man who was floating in the air with his long hair and blue robes fluttering in the wind. "Prince Consort, what's wrong?" Feeling the terrifying aura that suddenly appeared above the prince's mansion, as the mistress of the prince's mansion, Qin Lingfei immediately called for the 4 flood dragons that were at the peak of the 9th grade martial honorable realm to rise into the air. When she saw that the blue-robed young man who had released the terrifying aura was Yu Haoran, Qin Lingfei waved her hand at the 4 flood dragons and signaled them to return to the mansion. She immediately activated the defense of the 9-star pearl and used it to reluctantly come to Yu Haoran's side. She asked with a worried expression. Qin Lingfei's concerned voice gradually woke Yu Haoran up from his sorrow. After quickly retracting the terrifying aura, he directly carried his beloved woman and rushed into the mansion. 3 hours later, Yu Haoran, who had vented his anger, returned to the cultivation room and began to check the cultivation resources and treasures that Thaling had left for him. After a careful examination, Yu Haoran discovered that although Thaling had left behind most of the cultivation resources and treasures, the 6 sea-suppressing divine pearls, the green lotus array flag, the soul-severing banner, the Buddha Sarira, the celestial ending sword, the 30 drops of 10,000 years old geocentric spiritual milk, and the corpses of the divine dragon and divine phoenix were all taken away. The value of each of the 7 treasures that Thaling had taken away far exceeded the cultivation resources and treasures that were left behind. This also made Yuhauran's regret dissipate by a lot. After reorganizing and classifying the cultivation resources and treasures in front of him and placing them into 3 different storage rings, Yuhauran slowly closed his eyes and began to think about his cultivation and training plans for the next period of time. There were less than 17 days before the agreed time with Palace. He would use this free time to use the high-quality soul fire to strive to raise his soul power to the peak of the first-grade Emperor Wu. At the same time, according to the situation of his own medicinal herbs, he would use all his strength to refine a large number of pills. This way, not only could he help his close friends and family to raise their cultivation and strength, but he could also try to raise his alchemy realm and the grade of the nothingness pill condensation technique. Chapter 1635. In Xianyang City, just as Yuhauran was using the pure soul power contained in the soul fire to break through the Emperor Wu realm of soul power, in the hidden dragon wonderland behind the white fog in the forbidden area of the Imperial Palace in Xianyang City, a handsome young man in a purple robe with an extraordinary temperament floated quietly in the air of the wonderland. Around the purple-robed young man, there were 8 white-haired old men in light purple robes sitting cross-legged in the air. Each of the white-haired old men had a white feather that emitted a holy light in their hands. The white-haired old man sitting cross-legged to the north of the purple-robed young man raised his head to look at the lightning and thunder in the wonderland. A hint of joy appeared in his eyes as he ordered the other 7 white-haired old men. The ancient thunder has descended, and the void barrier of the ancient god trial grounds is about to be broken. We must immediately awaken the 9th prince's slumbering divine soul and descend upon the Tianxian continent under the leadership of the 9th prince. We must recreate the glory of the ancient god clan when they ruled over all living things. Yes, Prince. The other 7 white-haired old men were equally excited. They pressed their right hands to their chests and bowed their heads in response. Everyone, restore your god clan body to its peak state and summon the power of our master, Shern Huang, in the holy feather. Use the divine power of Shern Huang to awaken the 9th prince's slumbering divine soul in the abyss. The white-haired old man called Prince stood up with 2 fingers holding the holy feather and ordered the other 7 old men excitedly. After hearing the prince's order, the other 7 white-haired old men stood up at the same time. As their bodies suddenly grew taller, pairs of holy white wings gradually spread out from the backs of the 7 white-haired old men. If Yuhauran saw what was happening in the hidden dragon wonderland, he would definitely be shocked to the point of sucking in a breath of cold air. This was because the 7 white-haired old men all had 5 pairs of white wings spread out from their back. According to the number of wings and the classification of the god clan, these 7 white-haired old men were all gods in the martial god realm. If these 7 white-haired old men in the martial god realm descended upon the Tianxian continent, even the 4 great guardian families and the mysterious Yushu temple would probably open the door and surrender immediately. Seeing that the 7 white-haired old men had successfully restored their god clan bodies, the white-haired old man called Prince quickly grew taller, and at the same time, 5 pairs of wings that radiated holy light also spread out from his back. However, unlike the other 7 white-haired old men, the 5 pairs of wings on the back of the prince were much larger and longer than the wings of the other 7 white-haired old men. Then, the 8 white-haired old men threw the white feathers in their hands directly at the purple-robed young man who was floating in midair with a long breath. Seeing the 8 white feathers penetrating the purple-clothed young man's limbs, heart, and abdomen, the white-haired old man chanted softly with a respectful expression. My lord, Shern Huang, the Holy Spirit, will protect the god clan forever. As the white-haired old man chanted softly, the 5 pairs of wings on the backs of the 8 white-haired old men immediately lit up with dazzling white flames. Go! The 8 white-haired old men flapped the 5 pairs of wings on their backs and pointed at the purple-clothed young man. Along with the command, a total of 40 pairs of wings surged with white flames and rushed to the 8 feathers that were inserted into the purple-clothed young man's body. After absorbing the white flames, the 8 feathers gradually melted and then seeped into the purple-clothed young man's body bit by bit. Boom! After the 8 feathers had completely melted into the purple-clothed young man's body, an incomparably terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the purple-clothed young man's body. An incomparably terrifying aura instantly radiated across the entire ancient god test ground. Whether it was the powerful beasts of the Emperor realm or the God realm, or the experts of the God clan who were cultivating in seclusion, under the pressure of the terrifying aura, they either trembled and crawled on the ground or knelt down respectfully. Everyone, use your divine blood and mind to awaken the God clan's divine power in the holy feather. Seeing the terrifying aura rising from the purple-clothed young man, the prince ordered the other 7 white-haired old men. After that, he cut his finger and forced out a drop of light purple blood. The blood that the other 7 white-haired old men forced out was bright red. Just as the 8 white-haired old men forced out a drop of their blood, a suction force suddenly emerged from the purple-clothed young man's body and directly sucked the light purple blood and the 7 bright red blood into his body. The moment the 8 drops of blood entered the purple-clothed young man's body, the terrifying aura that was rising in his body immediately retracted. After that, a shadow with 6 pairs of huge wings appeared beside the purple-clothed young man. Although the shadow's appearance and body couldn't be seen, it had 6 pairs of huge wings on its back. Shen Han greets the Lord. After seeing the 6-winged shadow that appeared beside the purple-clothed young man, the prince immediately knelt on one knee and bowed with his left hand pressed to his chest. Divine servant greets the Lord. May the Lord live forever. The other 7 white-haired old men also knelt on one knee and bowed respectfully with their left hand pressed to their chest. The 6-winged shadow didn't give any response to the greetings of the 8 white-haired old men. It only extended its faint left hand and pressed it on the purple-clothed young man's forehead. Then, the 6-winged shadow turned into a pure white holy cannon and entered the purple-clothed young man's mind. 10 seconds later, the purple-clothed young man, who was quietly floating in mid-air, slowly opened his eyes. His eyes, which were as mesmerizing as the sea of stars, revealed a look of deep exhaustion. Shen Han greets the Son of God. Divine servant greets the Son of God. Facing the purple-clothed young man who had just woken up and was sitting cross-legged in mid-air, the 8 white-haired old men only pressed their left hand to their chest and didn't kneel down to greet him. Thank you for your protection, Royal Uncle and the 7 Lords. After glancing at Shen Han and the 7 divine servants, the 9th Son of God calmly thanked them. Son of God, how do you feel now? Shen Han, who had 5 pairs of wings on his back, flew in front of the 9th Son of God and asked with a look of anticipation in his eyes. The 9th Son of God looked up at the void where lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. He then retracted his gaze and replied with a look of arrogance. After countless years of training in the abyss, my divine soul already has the ability to break through to the supremacy realm. However, due to the influence of my divine body, I'm afraid I still need a very long time to cultivate. Son of God, now that everything in the heavenly Xian continent has awakened, the heavenly way with complete laws has already fallen into a deep sleep. This is the best time for you to borrow the power of heaven and earth to break through to the supremacy realm. After hearing the 9th Son of God's reply, Shen Han's eyes were filled with joy as he hurriedly reminded him. Royal Uncle, my divine soul has left the space of my mind for too long. As a result, my divine soul is a little unfamiliar with the control of my divine body. I'm afraid I still need some time to get used to it. The ninth Son of God instructed Shun Han after sensing his body's condition. Chapter 1636. The Ancient God Test Grounds. Descending upon the Tianxian continent and recreating the glory days when the ancient God clan ruled over all living things was the dream of countless God clan members in the ancient God test ground. Therefore, after hearing the order for the ninth godchild to descend upon the Tianxian continent, even Shun Han, who had reached the God realm, was extremely emotional. Yes, sir. However, after thinking about the various restrictions on the Tianxian continent for martial gods and ultimate martial artists, Shun Han reminded him with a slight frown. Your Highness, before descending upon the Tianxian continent, I have to tell you something in advance. Although the heavenly way with complete laws has fallen into a deep sleep, the consciousness of the heavens that is controlled by humans still has a very strong control over the Tianxian continent. In the short term, I'm afraid that us martial gods won't be able to accompany the people of the deity palace to conquer the Tianxian continent. After hearing Shun Han's reminder, the ninth godchild couldn't help but frown as well. A trace of worry flashed across his eyes. Even though his god soul had gone through the training of the endless abyss and was already capable of breaking through to the ultimate martial artist realm, his divine body that had been sealed could only maintain the cultivation of Emperor Wu's peak first grade. Even though his talent and potential were extremely outstanding, and his God clan bloodline and holy wings could greatly increase his power, he could only unleash the power of Emperor Wu's peak 6th grade at most. If Emperor Wu went to conquer the Tianxian continent with his peak 6th grade power, it would be no different from an old man hanging himself. He was tired of living. Your Highness, you don't have to worry too much. Seeing the ninth godchild frowning, Shun Han hurriedly comforted him and explained further. The current profound sky continent is different from the continents of the primordial, middle, and recent ancient times. Due to the limitations of the environment and the heavenly way, not only are there no martial gods in the entire continent, but even demigod-level false gods are rare. At the same time, the martial gods and ultimate martial artists who survived from the ancient, middle, and recent ancient times are either sleeping in their own secret realms or hiding in the distant endless void. They won't threaten or affect your Highness's conquest for the time being. After hearing Shun Han's further explanation, excitement gradually appeared in the ninth godchild's eyes. In the training room of the prince's mansion, perhaps it was because of the complete break with Thaling that caused his emotions to fluctuate violently for a short period of time. With the help of the pure soul power contained in the 300 soul fires, his soul power successfully advanced to Emperor Wu's realm. At the same time, his state of mind also smoothly broke through to Emperor Wu's realm. Now, as long as he could successfully integrate the dual laws of life and death into his body and soul, he would be able to reach Emperor Wu's level of cultivation and become a true almighty expert. However, when Yu Haoran thought about how Heavenly Jade had used its own profound accumulation to raise Emperor Wu's cultivation to the peak of the 2nd rank in one fell swoop, and how the heaven-punishing Devil Emperor had relied on his profound accumulation to directly break through to the peak of the 5th rank of the Emperor Wu, he immediately extinguished the thought of immediately integrating the power of laws into his main cultivation and directly breaking through to the realm of the Emperor Wu. After that, he used dozens of martial revered soul fires to consolidate his breakthrough. Then, he got up and left the cultivation room. As he walked towards the pavilion in the courtyard, he used his divine thought to inform Qin Lingfei and the others. This was because he was going to use the large amount of soul fires that he had obtained in White Bone City to increase the cultivation and strength of his close friends and family. Prince Consort, are you all right? After the storm-like impact, although Qin Lingfei was extremely satisfied, as the person who slept beside Yu Haoran, she could still feel the residual sadness and regret in his heart. and this was the first time she had seen such sadness and regret in the 2 years that they had known each other and loved each other. Her heart had been filled with worry. Ever since Yu Haoran entered the cultivation room to cultivate in seclusion, she had been guarding in front of the bedroom window in the courtyard, constantly paying attention to the situation in the cultivation room. Therefore, the moment she saw Yu Haoran leave the cultivation room and received a message from him via divine thought, Qin Lingfei was the first to appear beside him. Her eyes were filled with worry as she asked. The woman he loved had become the target of his regret and sadness. This made Yu Haoran, who had completely calmed down, feel a deep sense of guilt in his heart. Therefore, he directly held Qin Lingfei's hand and said with an apologetic face, "Lingfei, I'm sorry to have made you worry." "Prince Consort, what are you saying?" Shaking her head, Qin Lingfei directly hugged Yu Haoran's waist and comforted him tenderly. "You and I are husband and wife until death. No matter how much you suffer outside, no matter what kind of injustice you encounter, Ling Fei is willing to bear it with you." Ling Fei. In response to Qin Lingfei's hug, Yu Haoran was deeply moved and could not help but feel lucky. He was lucky that he still had his lover, family, and friends by his side. "Ayaya, it seems that we came at the wrong time." Just as Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei were hugging each other and confiding in each other, a teasing voice suddenly came from outside the pavilion. "Sister Suijin, seeing me and Prince Consort being so loving, do you feel very envious and jealous?" After experiencing the joy of intimacy, Qin Lingfei had long since shed the shyness of a young girl. Although the thickness of her skin could not be compared to Yu Haoran's, it was not something that the inexperienced Zhongli Shuiqin could compare to. Therefore, in the face of Zhongli Shuiqin's teasing, Qin Lingfei did not feel the slightest bit embarrassed. Instead, she turned around and teased her with a smile. "At this moment, do you also want to tightly hug Xingjun? Do you want to be sent to the bridal chamber as soon as possible so that you can make love with him?" Zhongli Shuiqin, who still had the mentality of a young girl, had never been teased so blatantly. Her face instantly turned red, and she directly turned around to leave the courtyard, leaving the courtyard that made her heart beat wildly. "Miss Shuiqin, please wait." Qin Lingfei's boldness and uninhibited words were also out of Yu Haoran's expectations. This caused him to be stunned and forget to stop her teasing. Therefore, when he saw that Zhongli Shuiqin was about to leave the courtyard shyly, he hurriedly urged her to stay. At the same time, he glared at Qin Lingfei with a stern face before calling the sword without trace and Yusiki, who had hurried over, into the pavilion. "Senior brother, just what happened a while ago?" Wu Xingjun, who was standing behind Zhongli Shuiqin, asked with eyes full of worry. That day, when Yu Haoran roared at the sky filled with grief and indignation, as well as the terrifying aura that surged from his body, Wu Xingjun, who had remained in the prince's mansion to cultivate, immediately sensed it. Chapter 1637. In the Wind Pavilion of the Prince's Mansion. "Xingjun, I'm fine." Shaking his head at Wu Xingjun, Yu Haoran glanced at the few people in the Wind Pavilion, and a trace of tenderness flashed in his eyes. Even Yusiki, who had been immersed in cultivation with her eyes closed since entering the Wind Pavilion, he did not pay any attention to her. Then, he took out 5 high-level martial honorable soul fires from his storage ring, wrapped them in yuan qi, and delivered them to the 5 people. He then reminded them with a smile. "Absorb and refine them directly, and see what the effect is." Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace, and Wu Xingjun instinctively trusted and admired Yu Haoran. Faced with the soul fires in front of them, they did not hesitate to absorb and refine them directly. Yusiki frowned slightly and shook her head. "The grade is too low, it's useless to me." Zhongli Shuiqin looked at the soul fires floating in front of her, and her eyes were filled with shock. Taking back the soul fires that Yusiki looked down on, Yu Haoran reminded Zhongli Shuiqin with a smile. "Miss Shuiqin, if you have anything to say, we can talk later." Let's test the effect of this soul fire first. Nodding her head, Zhongli Shuiqin used a special secret method to directly integrate the martial honorable soul fires into her knowledge sea. She checked the origin of the soul fires, and further confirmed her conjecture. Sister, what's the grade of your strength now? Yu Haoran put away the smile on his face and asked solemnly. My state of mind cultivation, Yuan Qi, and soul power have all reached the peak of the 3rd grade of Emperor Wu. Only the grade of my physical body is still at the peak of the 9th grade of martial honorable. Although she had successfully advanced to the unruffled state, she had not experienced the process of killing her blood relatives, so the unruffled state was not perfect. Sometimes she would be slightly affected by her family. As a result, she had rushed to the pavilion without any hesitation when Yu Haoran's soul had summoned her. When Yu Haoran questioned her, she did not hide anything. After hearing Yusiki's introduction of her realm, Yu Haoran couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as he looked at her, his eyes revealing an incomparably shocked expression. After experiencing the baptism of endless lightning tribulations, the adventures in the 1000 Butterfly Valley, the Green Lotus Cavern, and the White Bone City, his physical body grade, mental state, elemental energy, and soul power had successfully reached the 1st rank of Emperor Wu. As for Yusiki, he had always stayed in the prince consort's residence to cultivate, but his cultivation and strength had completely surpassed him. How could he not feel incomparably shocked? However, he remembered Thaling's reminder that the faster his sister's cultivation and strength improved, the more he could use her to break through the realm of unruffled emotions and smoothly advance to the realm of absolute emotions. Therefore, forcefully suppressing his shock, Yu Haoran thought carefully for a moment, then said with a smile, Sister, in the next period of time, I will refine a large number of 2nd-rank pills between the 1st and 9th rank. Among them, there will be the star-shattering body pill that is suitable for your physical body grade to break through to the Emperor Wu realm. Thank you. After nodding and thanking him, Yusiki closed her eyes again and continued to comprehend the great unruffled emotions Heart Sutra. The Sword Without Trace, who was the first to refine the soul fire, opened his eyes and couldn't help but exclaim, What a pure soul power! That's right. Wu Jingjun, who was following closely behind, nodded in agreement as a trace of anticipation appeared in his eyes. If there is a large amount of soul power like the one just now, I am confident that I can raise my cultivation to the peak of 9th grade martial honorable within 3 months. Yu Shixiang, have you been to one of the 10 great forbidden grounds of the Tianxian continent, the White Bone City that is said to be a place of no return? Zhongli Shuiqin, who had finished refining the soul fire at the same time as Qin Lingfei, asked with anticipation in her eyes. Zhongli Shuiqin's question not only made Qin Lingfei, the Sword Without Trace, and Wu Jingjun nervous, but even Yusiki immediately opened her eyes and looked at him. That's right. As he nodded to confirm, Yu Haoran waved his hand and took out 36 pill bottles. Other than Yusiki, who didn't need the soul fire to increase her soul power, there were 9 pill bottles floating in front of everyone. Yu Shixiang, how did you leave White Bone City? Zhongli Shuiqin immediately asked as she put away the 9 pill bottles floating in front of her. There was a sudden change in White Bone City, so I was able to leave safely. The Green Lotus Cave was the beginning of the estrangement between him and Thaling, and White Bone City was the place where he and Thaling officially severed ties. Therefore, Yu Haoran didn't want to talk too much about White Bone City, so he answered vaguely. Wu Jingjun could clearly feel that his senior was suddenly depressed, so he quickly nudged Zhongli Shuiqin, who was about to continue her interrogation, to tell her not to continue. Zhongli Shuiqin ignored Wu Jingjuan's reminder and continued to speak emotionally. Yu Shixiang, there are some records about White Bone City in our Zhongli clan's hidden scriptures pavilion. It is said that under White Bone City, there is a supreme bone spirit, as well as a top innate spiritual treasure, soul summoning banner. When Zhongli Shuiqin mentioned the supreme bone spirit buried under White Bone City, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with shock. Immediately afterward, his heart was ignited with endless fighting spirit. Because when he left White Bone City, he made a vow to himself that in the future, he must fight an endless battle of dignity with the expert who forced his way into the sea of consciousness. Although he wasn't 100% sure that he could successfully advance to the next level, at least it gave him a goal to fight for. Zhongli Shuiqin, shut up. Seeing that Zhongli Shuiqin didn't care about his senior's depressed mood and ignored his reminder just now, Wu Xingjun, who was extremely angry, scolded her with a gloomy face. After hearing Wu Xingjun's fierce scolding, Zhongli Shuiqin's eyes flashed with a trace of displeasure. When she was about to turn around and argue with him, she unexpectedly saw Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace, and Yusiki staring at her with dissatisfaction at the same time. She immediately realized that she seemed to have done something wrong. Xingjun, you don't have to do this. Reluctantly squeezing out a smile and shaking his head at Wu Xingjun, Yu Haoran explained to Zhongli Shuiqin. Miss Shuiqin, in the adventure of White Bone City, I lost a very important elder, so I don't want to recall too much about White Bone City for the time being. I hope you can forgive me. Yu Shixiang, I'm sorry. Zhongli Shuiqin, who didn't know what mistake she had made until now, hurriedly got up and apologized to Yu Haoran, then turned to Wu Xingjun with a gloomy face and apologized. Xiaojun, I'm sorry. Shuiqin was confused and didn't notice senior's mood. Shuiqin promises that it won't happen again in the future. Seeing that Zhongli Shuiqin took care of Wu Xingjun's feelings in time and explained and apologized humbly, Yu Haoran nodded with satisfaction, then took out a storage bag with a large number of low-level soul fires and handed it to Qin Lingfei, then explained with a smile. Chapter 1638. In the Wind Pavilion of the Prince's Mansion. Prince Consort, this. Qin Lingfei had just personally experienced how powerful the effect of the pure soul power contained in the soul fire was. Just the pure soul power contained in the soul fire was enough to make her soul power almost break through to the peak of 5th grade revered martial artist. Such a large number of precious elixirs were all given to her imperial father to enhance the strength of the imperial family. Yu Haoran's warm approach made Qin Lingfei deeply moved. She was so excited that she didn't know what to say. Lingfei, Wu Hen, Xingjun, Miss Shuiqin, for the next period of time, you should not leave the prince's mansion for the time being. He gently patted Qin Lingfei's jade hand, indicating that she didn't need to be so excited. Then he reminded everyone in the Wind Pavilion. Because I will be refining a large number of 2nd grade rank 1 to rank 9 elixirs to enhance my alchemy skills. So, if you lack elixirs to enhance your cultivation and strength, you can tell me in advance. I will give priority to refining the elixirs you need. Yu Shixiang, I don't know if you can refine the 2nd grade rank 9 Qian Yuan bone changing elixir? After hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, Zhongli Shuiqin took the initiative to ask with excitement. She had been staying in the prince's mansion for a long time. In addition to wanting to accompany her sweetheart and increase their feelings for each other, she also wanted to ask Yu Haoran to refine the Qian Yuan bone-changing elixir, which could be used to treat her closest relative. Yes. After hearing Zhongli Shuiqin mention the elixir, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with a different light. He nodded to confirm and slightly frowned at the same time. But now I lack the main ingredient and 3 auxiliary ingredients to refine the Qian Yuan bone-changing elixir. Yu Shixiang, not only will I provide you with 3 sets of medicinal herbs to refine the Qian Yuan bone-changing pill, I will also gift you with a spiritual vein of high-grade 5th level, 3 spiritual veins of middle-grade 5th level and 10 spiritual veins of low-grade 5th level, as well as 1,000 spirit grass that failed to advance to the first stage of the first stage. After receiving Yu Haoran's affirmation and reminder, Zhongli Shuiqin immediately gave out the refining conditions excitedly. Alright, I will be the first to refine a second step 9th grade heaven essence bone-changing pill for you. After the baptism of endless lightning tribulations and the large amount of spirit stones and spirit veins given to the heaven-punishing devil emperor, Yuhaoran's spirit veins were starting to run low. Therefore, in the face of Zhongli Shuiqin's conditions for alchemy, Yuhaoran agreed without any hesitation. Then, he looked at the sword without trace and Wu Jingjun. Shaking their heads, the two of them indicated that they did not have any pills to refine for the time being. Regarding this, Yuhaoran didn't ask too much. Instead, he planned to refine some pills that could help them improve their cultivation and strength according to his own ideas. In a beautiful valley about 700 miles away from the 100 Qi Gate, Yuhaoran stood on an open space with his hands behind his back. On a few green rocks not far away, there were still bloodstains from when he killed several elders of the ancient town sect, Heart Moon sect, and Meteor sect. Little spirit, this valley is the entrance to the Blue Moon secret realm. It is also the place where Brother Qi Yen and I agreed to return to the secret realm. Pointing to the location where the entrance to the secret realm was opened by the experts of the 100 Qi Gate, Ancient Town Sect, Heart Moon Sect, and Meteor Sect, Yuhaoran introduced with a trace of reminiscence in his eyes. Following the direction of Yuhaoran's finger, the empty spirit mouse carefully observed for a while and asked with a trace of puzzlement in its eyes. Yuhaoran, what was the agreement between you and that ugly palace? When the Blue Moon secret realm was closed, Brother Qi Yen once gave me a drop of his blood. He said that through the reaction of his own blood, he could forcibly tear open the void of the secret realm and send me directly into the Blue Moon secret realm. As a spiritual beast born from the heavens and earth, the empty spirit mouse had the monstrous potential to reach the sovereign realm. It was very arrogant. This could be seen from the fact that it would rather stay alone in the practice room to cultivate than meet Qin Lingfei and the others when it entered the residence of the prince consort. Therefore, Yuhaoran didn't mind its rude address of palace. Yuhaoran, do you still remember the first time we met after we were reborn? After hearing Yuhaoran's explanation, a trace of ridicule flashed in the small eyes of the empty spirit mouse as it reminded with a sneer. Little spirit, could it be that you can ignore the restrictions of the secret realm's rules and freely enter and exit the Blue Moon secret realm? The empty spirit mouse's reminder with a trace of ridicule made Yuhaoran immediately realize that he had overlooked a very important piece of information. That was, during the trial of the Blue Moon secret realm, how did the empty spirit mouse enter the secret realm and how did it leave after the secret realm closed? After all, it had just advanced to the 8th rank at that time and did not have the strength to resist the secret realm's rules. Yuhaoran, how many ruins and dangerous places have we explored together in our previous life? Have you forgotten that I have the heaven-defying ability to see through all illusions and freely cut space and formations? Seeing that Yuhaoran was truly aware of its strength under its reminder, the empty spirit mouse complained with a little sadness and dissatisfaction. Little spirit, I'm sorry. After hearing the empty spirit mouse's complaint, Yuhaoran hurriedly apologized. In more than 3 years, he was able to grow from a little martial disciple who had just reincarnated to a peerless powerhouse in the perfect 10th rank martial venerable realm. At least half of the credit was due to Thaling's meticulous training, which made him deeply dependent on Thaling. And the influence of this dependence was deep in his bones and could not be completely eliminated in a short period of time. This also caused him to often forget and overlook some very important things. For example, he had seen the empty spirit mouse during the trial of the Blue Moon secret realm. For example, in his previous life, he had fought side by side with the empty spirit mouse hundreds of times. Forget it. Thinking of Yuhaoran's loss of control some time ago, the empty spirit mouse knew that he must have encountered an unforeseen event that it did not understand. After forgiving him for his carelessness, it shook its head and directly flew to the entrance of the secret realm. Then, about 3 meters away from the entrance of the secret realm, it stretched out its claw and gently swiped. Then, a crack about 1 meter high and 40 centimeters wide appeared in the void. Then, a rich spiritual chi of heaven and earth emerged from the crack. Without the slightest hesitation, Yu Haoran directly used the power of the law of flash to instantly appear in front of the crack and then re-entered the Blue Moon's secret realm through the crack. Looking at the dozens of grunting redwood boars in front of him, as well as the grass where he had hidden to avoid being chased, Yu Haoran's face revealed a trace of a happy smile. Back then, he had used this group of redwood boars to truly get rid of those annoying chases. Chapter 1639. Inside the Blue Moon's secret realm, Pallas didn't have much of a favorable impression of the red redwood boar, so he didn't send it too far away from the secret realm. With the red redwood boar's grade and strength at that time, it simply didn't have the strength to leave the southern region by itself. However, in these 3 years, he had never heard any news about the red redwood boar. However, considering that the red redwood boar was only a slightly more outstanding exotic beast and was only a passerby that brushed past him, there wasn't much value in paying attention to it. Therefore, after forcefully dispelling the thoughts about the red redwood boar from his mind, Yu Haoran planned to soar into the air and fly towards the red rock. However, at this moment, the originally clear sky of the secret realm was suddenly covered by dark clouds. A terrifying aura gradually condensed from the dark clouds. Following the condensation of the terrifying aura, a single eye without any ripples of comprehension slowly emerged from the dark clouds. Who broke into the demon-sealing secret realm? Just as the single eye condensed from the rules of the secret realm's void appeared, a sharp rebuke came from the depths of the secret realm. "Brother Chi, it's me, Yu Haoran." Yu Haoran didn't pay any attention to the single eye that appeared in the void of the secret realm as he excitedly replied to the depths of the secret realm in a loud voice. "Brother Yu, how did you enter the Blue Moon's secret realm?" After hearing Yu Haoran's loud reply, a tall and strong figure appeared in front of him with lightning speed, asking with eyes full of doubt. However, after seeing the void spirit mouse standing on Yu Haoran's shoulder, Pallas suddenly came to a realization and sighed. "Brother Yu, I didn't expect you to have such a heaven-defying opportunity. You're actually able to obtain the companion of the void spirit mouse, which is born from the heavens and earth and can search for treasures all over the world." Pallas extended his hand to signal Yu Haoran not to speak for the time being and raised his head to instruct the single eye in the void of the secret realm. "This is my good friend, not an existence you can provoke. Now you can continue to sleep." After hearing Pallas's instructions, a trace of anger flashed in the eye before it finally dissipated. Afterwards, the void of the secret realm that was shrouded in dark clouds returned to its clear sky. "Brother Chi, I haven't seen you in 3 years, and you've become more and more domineering." Yu Haoran could not help praising the mystic realm's laws, even though the mystic realm's laws did not dare to disobey. Compared to Brother Yu, who has already reached the peak of 9th grade martial revered realm and has the strength of an almighty expert like Emperor Wu, my progress in the past 3 years is equivalent to a regression. Faced with Yu Haoran's praise, Pallas could not help but bitterly smile and sigh. Yu Haoran asked in shock after a look of shock flashed in his eyes. "Brother Chi, what is your cultivation level?" Due to the sudden appearance of the single eye formed by the secret realm's laws, he was unable to fly into the air in the end. Therefore, he did not use any of his origin energy or soul power. Then, how did Pallas see through his peak 9th grade martial revered realm cultivation? At the same time, how did he see through his Emperor Wu's strength? 8th grade 9th grade martial revered realm, strength that has just entered the Emperor realm. Faced with Yu Haoran's shocked questioning, Pallas did not hide anything from him. "Z." After hearing Pallas's honest reply, Yu Haoran could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because in his knowledge, he had never seen or heard of anyone who could have the terrifying strength of an early Emperor Wu with a peak 9th grade martial master cultivation. The reason why I can see through Brother Yu's cultivation level and strength is because I have successfully opened my third eye and have the ability to see through reality and illusion, Pallas continued to explain without paying attention to Yu Haoran's reaction. Brother Qi, in the 3 years since I left the Blue Moon Secret Realm, I have always thought that my talent and potential, as well as the speed of cultivation and strength improvement, were the best in the entire Tianxian continent. However, compared to Brother Qi today, I realized that I am just an ordinary warrior. Not only did his strength increase exceed his understanding, he had also opened his third eye that had a heaven-defying ability. The various heaven-defying performances of the scarlet-loathed beast convinced Yu Haoran wholeheartedly. He could not help but sigh. "Brother Yu, how about we go to the Poison Lake and talk about it?" In 3 years, whether it was Yu Haoran or himself, their cultivation and strength had undergone earth-shattering changes. If he continued to introduce and sigh, he was afraid that it would not end in a short time. Moreover, Du Yuan's condition was not quite right recently. He needed to pay attention to his only brother at all times. Therefore, he took the initiative to end their sigh and took the initiative to invite him. "Brother Qi, please." Nodding his head in agreement, Yu Haoran immediately soared into the air and gestured. After that, Yu Haoran and Pallas used their maximum speed and returned to the Poison Lake in the blink of an eye. Just as they landed at the edge of the Poison Lake, Yu Haoran suddenly saw the color of the Poison Lake's water. It was no longer colorful like before. Instead, it had turned into a pitch-black color that made one's scalp tingle. "Brother Yu, don't." Seeing Yu Haoran extend his finger to touch the Poison Lake's water, Pallas, who was very clear about how strong the Poison Lake's poison was, hurriedly stopped him with an abrupt change in expression. "Brother Qi, have you forgotten that I, Yu Haoran, am also an expert in the Tao of poison?" After turning his head to remind Pallas, Yu Haoran directly inserted his finger into the Poison Lake. Immediately after, the black water in the Poison Lake suddenly churned and turned into small black snakes that desperately surged towards the finger that was inserted into the lake. "Brother Qi, where's Brother Du Yuan?" Just as the countless small black snakes were about to touch his finger, Yu Haoran immediately withdrew his finger and turned his head to ask Pallas. "Brother Du Yuan, Brother Yu has fulfilled the promise from 3 years ago and has come to see you." After hearing Yu Haoran mention Du Yuan, a trace of worry flashed across Pallas's eyes as he shouted towards the lake. However, after waiting for nearly 3 minutes, there were no ripples on the calm surface of the lake. Du Yuan also did not respond to Pallas's call. "Brother Qi, has Brother Du Yuan's temper been unusually fiery recently and his strength has been increasing rapidly?" Withdrawing his gaze from the Poison Lake, Yu Haoran asked with a serious expression. "That's right." While nodding his head to confirm, Pallas explained with a gloomy expression. "Brother Yu, ever since a month ago, Brother Du Yuan suddenly entered a state of enlightenment for no apparent reason. Not only has his strength increased by leaps and bounds, it has also far exceeded our expectations. His personality has also become bloodthirsty." At this point, Pallas raised his head and glanced at the secret realm space outside the poison fog. A trace of worry flashed across his eyes as he continued. Chapter 1640. Blue Moon's Secret Realm, Within the Poison Fog. After hearing Pallas's explanation of Du Yuan's recent state, Yu Haoran's gaze once again turned to the lake. Looking at the ink-black lake water, a trace of hesitation flashed across his eyes. After hesitating for nearly a minute, he turned back to look at Pallas and asked, "Brother Qi, does Brother Du Yuan have the form of a snake's head, scorpion's tail, 1,000 legs, black skin, and tongue?" Due to Du Yuan's lowly background and ugly appearance, other than Pallas, who had seen Du Yuan's true appearance, All the other strange beasts in the Blue Moon's secret realm who had seen Du Yuan's true appearance were either killed by Du Yuan's poison or secretly dealt with by Pallas. His goal was only to appease Du Yuan's inner violence. Therefore, while Pallas was extremely shocked that Yu Haoran knew the true form of Du Yuan, he also asked in disbelief, "Brother Yu, how did you know the true form of Brother Du Yuan?" Pointing at the ink-black lake water in front of him, Yu Haoran's eyes revealed a trace of regret as he said, "The place where the origin of poison gathers, the perfect poison liquid of the fusion of the 5 poisons. Other than the body of Du Yuan that was born from the fusion of the 5 poisons, even a poison master at the peak of the poison emperor realm would not be able to refine such a perfect poison liquid of Du Yuan. If he had been able to obtain the perfect poison liquid of the fusion of the 5 poisons in his previous life, relying on the powerful supplementary effect of the perfect poison liquid on his constitution and poison core, not only would he be able to comprehend the power of law related to poison, he would also be able to advance to the peak of the poison great grandmaster realm and have the potential to become a poison emperor. Brother Yu, what exactly happened to Brother Du Yuan? Yu Haoran's explanation just now was too profound. Pallas, who didn't know much about poison, thought for a long time but still couldn't understand the meaning of his explanation. He also couldn't understand how Yu Haoran guessed the true form of Du Yuan. However, through his explanation just now, Pallas realized that he should know the reason for the mutation of Du Yuan, so he asked nervously. Raising his head to look at the void of the secret realm, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with a trace of cold light as he replied, "Advancement and transformation. Brother Yu, can you explain it in more detail?" Pallas frowned slightly and asked. "Brother Crimson, Brother Poison Source is born from the fusion of the 5 poisons. His life form is different from yours and mine. Instead, he is somewhat similar to the Void Spirit Mouse. That is why Brother Poison Source's advancement and transformation are completely different from ordinary living beings." Yu Haoran carefully recalled the information he had learned about the source of the poison from the Holy Book of Poison in his previous life, then combined it with his own understanding of the fusion of the 5 poisons. He explained in detail. "Brother Qi, every advancement in our cultivation and grade is a sublimation of our physique and strength. However, to Brother Du Yuan, each advancement in grade is a battle against the heavens and the earth, a battle against fate. Brother Yu, can your explanation be simpler and more straightforward?" Yu Haoran's explanation just now was as profound as his explanation of how he knew the source of the poison. Pallas couldn't help but remind Yu Haoran. "Brother Crimson, to put it simply, Brother Du Yuan's state of enlightenment a month ago was actually the process of his breakthrough in grade. It was the process of the 5 poison source body evolving into another form." Pallas's reminder also made Yu Haoran realize that the Pallas in front of him was a strange beast that wasn't proficient in the way of poison. He wasn't one of his 2 disciples who had the soul-devouring body and the Herman body. He couldn't help but sigh with some regret in his heart before giving a simple explanation. However, according to Brother Du Yuan's own comprehension and accumulation of the way of poison, this kind of state of enlightenment shouldn't have appeared so early. This leads to a great hidden danger in the process of advancing in grade. It is very likely that it will affect Brother Du Yuan's mind and cause him to be in a state of qi deviation. Brother Yu, who exactly interfered with Brother Du Yuan's cultivation? Yu Haoran's simple explanation allowed Pallas to truly understand the reason behind Du Yuan's mutation. He immediately asked with a murderous aura. Even a martial god would find it difficult to make a spiritual being born from the intersection of the 5 poisons enter a state of enlightenment. Yu Haoran raised his head to look at the void of the secret realm and pointed out with a cold smile. "I'm afraid that only the power of the rules that can change the environment of the secret realm can interfere with the special ability of the secret realm's living beings." After hearing Yu Haoran's accusation, Pallas immediately raised his head to yell at the void of the secret realm. The rules of the secret realm, get out here. The rules of the secret realm that had always obeyed Pallas's orders didn't immediately appear this time. Instead, the entire void of the secret realm was instantly filled with 9 colored clouds. The 9 colored clouds have appeared. The void rules have been formed. Seeing the 9 colored clouds rapidly covering the void of the secret realm, Pallas's face instantly darkened. He gritted his teeth and revealed the true reason why the rules of the secret realm had mobilized the 9 colored clouds. The rules of the secret realm, it seems like you want to use the void fruit that's about to appear to distract me so that you can get through the period of weakness when you lose control of the secret realm. Pallas, whose body had suddenly expanded and his expression had become even more hideous and ferocious, yelled with a burning rage in his eyes. But let me tell you, you're wrong. Compared to Brother Duyuan's safety, even the birth of the primal purple mist fruit that can instantly become a god won't change my determination to destroy you. After hearing Pallas's murderous threat, the rules of the secret realm were clearly a little afraid. Not only did the 9 colored clouds gather thicker and thicker, but the speed at which the void fruit was condensing also increased. Brother Qi, please calm down. Yu Haoran reminded Pallas with a serious expression after hearing the empty spirit mouse's soft explanation. Pallas warned in a frosty voice as he glared angrily at Yu Haoran with his burning eyes. Brother Yu, after seeing my transformed form, you should know the true reason why I'm so close to Brother Duyuan. So, I don't want you to get too involved in what's going to happen next. Otherwise, don't blame me, Pallas, for being ruthless. After fighting side by side with Pallas several times in his previous life, Yu Haoran knew very well just how ruthless Pallas could be after transforming. So, in the face of Pallas' warning, he wasn't angry at all. Brother Qi, I'm not stopping you from destroying the rules of the secret realm. I just want to remind you to pay attention to the situation outside the secret realm before deciding what to do next. After hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, Pallas raised his head and looked at the void of the secret realm. The third eye on his forehead slowly opened. Then, a special energy shot out from the third eye. The special energy directly crossed the barrier of the secret realm and clearly saw the situation outside. Chapter 1641. Inside the Blue Moon's Secret Realm. The sudden situation at the entrance of the secret realm caused Pallas's eyes to gradually reveal a hint of struggle. His boulder-like fists were tightly clenched. Brother Qi, I'm sure you've already used your special ability to understand just how powerful those experts in the valley are. We're definitely no match for them if we join forces. Seeing the struggle in Pallas's eyes, Yu Haoran knew that he was hesitating. He was hesitating whether to continue destroying the secret realm's rules or to temporarily put aside the idea of revenge and focus on dealing with the upcoming crisis. Therefore, he needed to continue exerting enough pressure on Pallas so that Pallas would make the right choice in the end. They could join forces to fight for the nether fruit that was about to appear so that they could use the nether fruit and the space crystal to comprehend the supplementary power of the law of space to deal with the upcoming crisis. The existence of the rules of the secret realm can delay those experts from entering the secret realm. This will not only give us a chance to obtain the spatial fruit, it will also allow me to suppress Brother Duyuan's tyrannical consciousness and completely remove the latent danger afterwards. Brother Yu, are you sure you can completely restore Brother Duyuan? They were both mixed-blooded and had the same ugly and ferocious appearance. This caused Pallas and Duyuan to have a brotherly affection for each other. In order to protect this precious brotherly affection, he was willing to give up the extremely precious nether fruit. But on the other hand, if he could restore Duyuan to normal and continue to protect their brotherly affection, he could also temporarily give up his revenge on the secret realm's rules. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, the anger in Pallas's eyes quickly calmed down and he asked excitedly, Nodding, Yuhauran took out a pill bottle from his storage ring and poured out a pill that emitted a mesmerizing smell that made one's spirit drowsy. Brother Chi, this is the rank 2, rank 1 divine soul sleep that I refined using the 1000 charm ecstasy and 8 supplementary herbs. It can temporarily put Brother Du Yuan into a state of deep sleep. Just as Yuhauran took out the rank 2 divine soul, Pallas felt an irresistible drowsiness assault him. This caused him to bite the tip of his tongue and instantly wake up from the pain. He immediately sealed off his 6 senses. However, the effect of sealing his 6 senses was not obvious. The drowsy state of the spirit caused Pallas to involuntarily close his eyes. Luckily, Yuhauran used his essence energy to envelop the medicinal pill in time, blocking off the enchanting fragrance emitted by the medicinal pill, thus preventing him from fainting in the end. Brother Yu, even I can't resist the sleeping power of this pill. Isn't it just right to use it to deal with the group of powerhouses in the Secret Realm Valley? Suppressing the shock that emerged from its heart, the Scarlet Loth's eyes were filled with anticipation as it suggested. Faced with Pallas's suggestion, Yuhauran smiled bitterly and shook his head. Then, he indicated for him to fly 100 meters into the air and withdraw the essence energy that enveloped the medicinal pill. Although the enchanting fragrance emitted by the medicinal pill still had the effect of causing the spirit to fall into a deep sleep, its power had been weakened by at least 90%. It could no longer affect the peerless experts of the martial honorable realm. This caused Pallas to sigh in disappointment. Brother Chi, I will use this divine soul sleep to make Brother Du Yuan completely fall into a deep sleep. Then, you will be responsible for hiding him in a hidden place. Earlier, when Yuhauran used his finger to check the cause of the change in the poison lake, he had already confirmed that the source of the poison was still hidden at the bottom of the poison lake. Therefore, after flicking the immortal's sleep pill into the poison lake, he instructed the Qi Yen beast. After the contest for the void fruit is over, I will bring Brother Du Yuan to see someone with the soul-devouring physique. She has the ability to remove the hidden danger of the poison source's grade. All right, I will listen to Brother Yu's arrangements. After the contest for the void fruit was over, the secret realm's laws would directly enter their peak state from their weakened state. As a demon-sealing secret realm that could seal gods, the secret realm's laws at their peak state already possessed terrifying strength that did not lose out to the honorable realm. Therefore, regardless of Yuhauran's suggestion, he would immediately take the poison source and leave the demon-sealing secret realm after the contest for the void fruit was over to avoid the revenge of the secret realm's laws. As the divine soul sleep of the rank 2 divine soul sleep entered the blood lake, the originally calm surface of the lake gradually began to bubble. As more and more bubbles appeared, a faintly nauseating monster slowly floated to the surface of the lake. Pallas immediately looked at Yuhauran to observe the changes in his expression when he saw the monster that floated to the surface of the lake. Fortunately, he had seen the poison source's portrait in the canon of Poison Tao in his previous life and was already mentally prepared. Therefore, when he saw the snake-head, scorpion venom, thousand-legged, and black-skinned monster floating on the surface of the lake, Yuhauran's expression was as calm as still water without any abnormalities. This made Pallas very satisfied and he nodded. Brother Chi, it's your turn now. After confirming that the poison source floating on the surface of the lake had completely fallen into a state of slumber, Yuhauran turned his head and instructed Pallas. Got it. Nodding, Pallas waved his sleeve at the surface of the lake, and the poison source floating on the surface of the lake disappeared without a trace. A strange look flashed across Yuhauran's eyes as he couldn't help but begin to speculate in his heart. Generally speaking, there were 3 ways to directly store living creatures. The first method was to sign a pet beast contract with each other. The laws would condense a pet beast space suitable for the pet beast's cultivation. The second method was similar to the Victor and Void Mirror, which were innate level storage artifacts. The third method was to be able to open up one's own independent space within one's body. The poison source was a spiritual creature born from the convergence of the 5 poisons. It was in existence similar to the void spirit mouse, and was a spiritual beast that couldn't sign a pet beast contract with any living creature. As for artifacts similar to the Victor and Void Mirror, not only were there so few that they could be counted with 2 hands, but Yuhauran was also clear about the specific origins and locations of each artifact. He didn't think that Pallas would be able to obtain any of the remaining artifacts. Although one could only open up an independent space within one's body after one's cultivation had advanced to the martial god realm, for the extraordinarily talented Pallas to be able to possess the powerful beast soul of the Emperor realm while he was still at the 8th rank 9th rank. In that case, it wasn't impossible for him to open up an independent space within his body in advance. Therefore, Yuhauran, who was more inclined towards the third method, had a slight impulse in his heart. He wanted to discuss with Pallas the method of opening up an independent space, and see if he could do it before breaking through to the realm of Emperor Wu. This would make up for the lack of a powerful method after driving away the Thaling. Whoosh! Chapter 1642. In the Blue Moon's Secret Realm. Swoosh! After hearing the sound of an object flying through the secret realm, Yuhauran and Pallas looked up at the same time. They saw a red fruit the size of a cherry shooting out of the 9-colored clouds like a meteor. Yuhauran immediately mobilized his powerful divine sense, which was not any weaker than a beginner martial emperor's. After quickly catching up to the red fruit that had fallen, Yuhauran used his divine sense to envelop the red fruit and instantly brought it before him. Swoosh! Originally, he wanted to carefully feel the effect of the red void fruit on the comprehension of the power of law. However, the sound of an object flying through the secret realm sounded again. Although he quickly used his divine thought to chase after it, the speed of the orange void fruit was too fast and the location where it landed was too far away. In the end, his divine thought could only return without any result. The failure of the orange void fruit made Yuhauran immediately extinguish the thought of checking the effect of the red void fruit. He quickly put the red void fruit in his hand into the elixir bottle that he had prepared beforehand. Then, he stared at the 9-colored clouds gathering in the secret realm. Swoosh! When the sound of the third object flying through the secret realm sounded, Yuhauran, who was already prepared, immediately used his divine thought to condense a palm and quickly grabbed the yellow void fruit. However, his body shook slightly and his face instantly turned pale. This was because the impact of the yellow void fruit was not inferior to the full force attack of a peak rank 1 expert like Emperor Wu. It was impossible for him to intercept it in advance with his divine thought, which had just entered Emperor Wu's divine thought. After quickly swallowing the elixir used to heal divine thought, Yuhauran did not blindly use his divine thought to intercept it. He only used his divine thought to determine the approximate location where the void fruit landed so that it would be easier for him to find it later. Brother Yu, the void fruit has different auxiliary effects on the comprehension of the power of law. The more colors the void fruit presents, the stronger the effect of the comprehension of the power of law. The quality of the power of law that can be comprehended will also be higher. Pallas didn't fight for the red, orange, and yellow void fruits when the 9-colored clouds in the void of the secret realm shot out. He just looked at Yuhauran with a smile in his eyes. He watched as he successfully used his spiritual force to obtain the first red void fruit, watched as his spiritual force lost track of the second orange void fruit, and watched as his spiritual force was defeated by the third yellow void fruit. However, when he saw Yuhauran continue to track the fallen void fruit with divine thought, he couldn't help but frown and remind him. With our aptitude and comprehension as top monstrous geniuses, It would be a waste of time and delay our cultivation if we tried to comprehend the ordinary power of laws through a monochromatic void fruit. Brother Chi, I'm different from you. You only have Duyuan and Duyuan by your side, but I have a group of close friends and family behind me. They don't have the potential of top monsters like you and me, so it's very difficult for them to successfully comprehend the power of laws through their own comprehension. After hearing Palace's reminder, Yu Haoran used his spiritual force to track the 9th brown void fruit in the void of the secret realm, as he replied with a wry smile. Therefore, I can only work harder and contribute a little more. I'll try my best to find more treasures that can help them improve their cultivation and strength. Palace, who also cherished friendship, agreed with Yu Haoran's emphasis on family and friendship. His eyes were filled with admiration. When the 9th brown void fruit fell into a dense forest in the secret realm, the 9 colored clouds in the void of the secret realm suddenly began to shrink. Then, 72 9-colored void fruits shot out from the 9 colored clouds in one breath. If that's the case, I'll lend you a hand, Brother Yu. Palace laughed and reminded when he saw a large number of monochromatic void fruits shot out from the 9 colored clouds in the void of the secret realm. Then, he waved his wide sleeves and roared, "Let's go! World in the sleeve!" Accompanied by the Chi Lo's violent roar, the sleeve immediately began to extend and expand, directly enveloping the 9 colored clouds of the entire secret realm. In the end, it successfully collected all 72 single-colored void fruits into the sleeve. Seeing that he could directly collect all the monochromatic void fruits with just his sleeve, Yu Haoran's eyes were filled with shock. The impact of the void fruits when they fell was almost equivalent to Emperor Wu's strength at the peak of rank 1. With his current cultivation and strength, although he could barely catch one void fruit, his own speed could not keep up with the speed of the falling void fruit. But what about Palace? It seemed that when they met just now, he did not have an accurate description of his own strength. Or rather, he could deal with Emperor Wu and martial honors in the valley at the entrance of the secret realm by himself. Brother Yu catch. After wrapping the 72 monochromatic void fruits with his demon power and sending them all to Yu Haoran, Palace smiled and gestured. Brother Chi, thank you. Anyway, Palace did not have any ill intentions towards him. The stronger he was, the more helpful it would be for him to compete for the monochromatic, trichromatic, and quadrichromatic void fruits that would appear later. Therefore, Yu Haoran did not hesitate at all. He waved his hand and collected all the 72 void fruits floating in front of him into the elixir bottle that he had prepared beforehand. World in the sleeve. Just after Yu Haoran collected the 72 monochromatic void fruits, the 9 colored clouds in the secret realm immediately shot out another 72 monochromatic void fruit. Without any hesitation, Palace continued to use the secret technique of World in the Sleeve to collect the monochromatic void fruits and successfully collected the 72 monochromatic void fruit. World in the Sleeve. When the 9 colored clouds gathered in the void of the secret realm began to spray out 63 tricolored void fruits, the Scarlet Loath continued to use the same method and successfully collected 63 tricolored void fruit. However, when the 9 colored clouds in the secret realm began to shoot out 54 monochromatic void fruits, Palace did not continue to use the secret technique of World in the Sleeve to collect the void fruit. Instead, he used his divine thought to track down the locations where most of the monochromatic void fruits had fallen. At the same time, he turned his head and explained to Yu Haoran with a wry smile. Brother Yu, the impact force formed when the monochromatic void fruits fell is almost equivalent to the strength of Emperor Wu at the peak of level 4. It has exceeded the power that my secret technique can withstand. Brother Chi, it is all thanks to your help that we were able to collect all the monochromatic, duochromatic, and trichromatic void fruit. At the same time, it has far exceeded my expectations. Faced with Palace's wry explanation, Yu Haoran hurriedly comforted him and cupped his hands in thanks. Brother Chi, you Howren, will remember your kindness today. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.